Layla was a forgotten girl, until she met Duke Matthias, the predator of Arvis. To him, she wasn't a guest, she was a fragile bird meant to be caged. In a world ruled by power and fear, her tears tempt him closer. Layla thinks, let's go to the park together when the flowers bloom in the spring. That promise, made with a faint smile on his emaciated face, became her father's last words. Spring no longer arrived for the child. The life of the child, left all alone in the world and forced to move from one relative to another, was truly miserable. A boy clenched his hand and said, if you're going to stay in this house, you have to go through an initiation. Layla said, stop it. The boy pushed her and said, let go. Another boy said, what, you don't want to? Then get out. Her aunt's children would bully her at every opportunity. Whether you're a relative or not, you can end up in an orphanage for all I care. Another said, that's right. Why must we raise a brat? And he pushed Layla into the river and said, who was abandoned by her own mother. And when she eventually managed to drag her broken body back home, her uncle's fists would fly at her. Her uncle said, it's all that the **** girl's fault. I've had the worst luck since she showed up. There was not a thing anyone could do to stop his cruel abuse, especially on the days he lost at the gambling house. When he advanced with a stick to hit her, her aunt said, stop, please. You're going to kill her. Her uncle shouted, let go of me. It was hellish, but having nowhere else to go, all the child could do was endure. In spite of this, misfortune piled up like snow that falls all through the night. Layla, sobbing, said, Auntie, I'll stay in the corner out of your way. I'll be a good girl, and do just as I'm told. So please don't abandon me, please? Her aunt said, enough, Layla. Go ask another relative to take care of you. Layla sobbed and said, Auntie, and her aunt replied, anywhere is better than here, wouldn't you say? Goodbye. Once again, the child was driven out into the street, on the coldest day of winter. She tried other relatives' homes. One relative said, you're a girl. I have no use for you. You're only going to be another mouth to feed. Another said, how much trouble did you cause to be sent away? I don't want a child like you in my house. Another said, look here, how exactly do you expect us to take care of you? We can barely feed ourselves. None of them were willing to take in the child who, in their eyes, was nothing more than an orphan and a nuisance. Layla thinks, a child who was abandoned by her own mother. Maybe their reactions weren't so surprising, a voice said, Layla. Have you heard of Berg? She replied, yes. The man gave her a letter and said, then go and try him. I'll send him word in advance. And so the child boarded a train that would take her across the border, from Lovita, where she was born and raised, to Berg. She clenched the letter and thought, attaching a glimmer of hope to this unfamiliar name written on a piece of paper. Berg. Carlsbad Station. So this is Berg. Will I be able to find my way? What if I'm unable to find him? I can't go back to Lovita now. No, I mustn't think like that. This is my father's homeland. And thanks to him, I can already speak the language. She thought, if I don't know the way, I can just ask. It's all right. It'll be all right. Layla said, excuse me, hello, Mr. Postman. I need to go to this address here. Could you tell me which way to go, please? The postman replied, let me see, the groundskeeper at the house of herhardt, Bill Remmer? Layla said, that's right. The postman said, I know him well. I'm on my way to the mansion for a delivery. Why don't you come with me? Layla replied, really? May I? Thank you. Seeing the mansion, she said, wow. So that must be the mansion where the Duke lives. It's like something out of a fairy tale. To think Mr. Remmer is the groundskeeper on an estate as beautiful as this. I wonder what he's like. I wonder if he'll take me in. She approached a man working and thought, maintain good posture. Stay cheerful and be polite. Layla asked, excuse me, are you Mr. Bill Remmer, by any chance? He replied, yes, that's me. Seeing him, Layla thought, oh, stay calm. You practiced all through the train journey. She said, hello, Uncle Bill. I'm Layla Llewellyn. I've come from Lovita. Bill thought, Lovita? I thought you had an accent. He said, you mean to say you crossed the border all by yourself? Layla replied yes. I came by train. Bill said I see. Anyhow, what did you want me for? Layla said pardon? He said he'd send word in advance. But maybe, the postman said Mr. Remmer. I see you've met the girl already. Bill said did you bring this child here? The postman said I sure did. I ran into her at the station and she said she was looking for you, so I brought her along. There's a letter addressed to you, too. Bill said a letter? The postman said it's from Lovita. Bill said what? The postman left, and the letter read, Dear Mr. Bill Remmer, a child will be coming to see you. Her name is Layla Llewellyn. She's the daughter of Albert Llewellyn. The child's mother has long since left home after falling for another man, and in turn, Albert turned to drink, fell ill, and died. So the child has been passed around from relative to relative, but none of them are well off enough to look after her, and my family is also much too poor to take in another mouth to feed. Bill said, Wait, what on earth? The letter continued, A while ago I heard that you were working as the groundskeeper on the famed estate of a duke. Of all the relatives with even a faint connection to the child, you seem to be the best off, so I'm sending her to you. Bill shouted, What? A faint connection, my foot! He thought we're relatives in name, but her father and I are no better than strangers. Now I'm supposed to raise the child of a distant relative whom I last saw more than 20 years ago. I, Bill Remmer, a widower, raise a scrawny little girl like her? It ended with, P.S. If you can't take her, send the child to an orphanage. Bill shouted, Blast it. Could he not have told me sooner? Those bastards. Are they out of their minds? Even if all this were true, how can her relatives, who are supposedly adults, send this little thing out here all by herself? Oh, I see. They don't give a jot whether she lives or dies, far away in a foreign land, that's it. Bill thought it's still cold out, but that's all she's wearing? She's thin as a rail. She couldn't have been eating properly. And she's only carrying one bag, even though she's traveled from abroad. Layla said, Excuse me, Uncle Bill. I'm not so young. I'll be 12 in a few weeks' time. I can also read. And if you let me, I can help you with your work. Bill said, Follow me. It doesn't help to think on an empty stomach. As they went to his home, Layla thought, Does he not have any other family? Perhaps he lives alone? Bill said, Child. Layla replied, Yes. He asked, Is that all you're having? Layla said, Yes, Uncle Bill. I only eat a little. Really? Bill said, I'm not a fan of picky eaters. Children should eat like cows. Layla said, Well, it's hard for me to eat like a cow, but I can eat a lot, Uncle Bill. Bill said, I can see that. He thought she must have been walking on eggshells all this time. Bill said, By the way, aren't you scared of me? She replied, No. You don't shout at me nor do you hit me. And you've given me this delicious food to eat. So I think you must be a kind and caring person. Bill thought, What sort of life has she had to be so grateful for such trivial things? Taking a sip of water, he thought, Those bastards. I do feel bad for her, but it's out of the question for me to raise her. I'd better reach a decision about what to do with her by next week at the latest. Having said that, where on earth am I supposed to send her away to? Bill said, You can stay here until I settle where you'll go next. She thinks as I thought, It's happened again. Where will I be sent away to this time? Layla said, Did you sleep well, Uncle Bill? Bill said, Yes, good morning. She turned and started preparing the hundi. Layla said, Should I move these plates to the table? Bill nodded his head in dedication. Layla said, Thank you for the food. Bill gave the meal and said, Here, eat up. Layla said, Of course. I'll eat like a cow. Have you heard? A maid said, Bill Remmer is looking after a young girl. That Mr. Remmer, and a girl? The servants were on their break. One maid said, That's absurd. It would be more believable if he was raising an elephant or a lion. Another said, I swear. It's a girl, I'm certain. A man said, Mr. Remmer has been living alone since his wife's death. I don't believe he has any children. There must be a reason why he's looking after her, she said, but if the rumors are true, then this is serious. How is that gruff man going to raise a girl? Another maid said, You never know. He may be surprisingly good at it. After all, he has a gift for taking care of his flowers. He's the best groundskeeper. Even the Dowager Herhardt approves of him. A woman said maybe he'll raise the girl to be just as beautiful as his flowers. Another woman replied, really, flowers and children are fundamentally different. You're not taking this seriously because you're not the one responsible. It sounds like a rumor, so let's all get back to work, shall we? A man said, seems like it's not just a rumor. Look over there. Servants said, really? Where? They looked out the window and said, oh my goodness. Oh my, there really is a girl. And a small, blonde girl at that. How old do you think she is? Servants said, look at her, running behind Mr. Remmer. How did a child so young come to be in Bill Remmer's care? The tragic story of the orphaned Layla Llewellyn spread like wildfire amongst the servants. Layla said on an errand, here are the flowers. A maid said, thanks. You're Layla, aren't you? Here, take this. They're cookies. Layla said, for me? The maid said, that's right. Enjoy. Layla replied, thank you. She bowed and said, goodbye, miss. One maid said, she'll end up in an orphanage, won't she? Another replied, well, it's hard to say what Mr. Remmer will decide to do. When asked about the child, Bill Remmer continued to give the same answer. Bill said, I'm thinking about it. She can't stay here, so I have to think long and hard about what to do. As he continued to ponder from spring into summer, the sight of Layla following behind him and helping him with his work became a familiar scene. The employees of the house of Herhardt, who had watched them both, all reached the same conclusion. Bill Remmer, the best groundskeeper in Arvis, has only the talent for raising flowers. A servant said, what's that then? There's some cookies and cakes. The mistress had a tea party yesterday. Bill replied, I hate sweet things. A woman asked, and? Bill said, they're for Layla. Everyone is using Layla as an excuse to come and go as they please. One person brought clothes. This is my little sister's, but it's practically new. Someone else brought books, and others brought stationery, which was very out of character, and even those who had never come here before paid a visit. Bill said, not only that, sometimes people come to see Layla for no reason. It's a real headache. The woman replied, that's because Layla is a darling. It's amazing how a little thing like her can be so polite and well-mannered. You can't help but care for her. And it's sweet how she scurries around the woods and gardens like a squirrel. Since the Duke, it's been a long time since a child has lived on the estate. Do you remember? The Duke was very dignified, even as a child. A woman replied, oh my goodness. Wait a minute. Mr. Remmer. What is that child doing? Look at her. She's climbing a tree. Bill chuckled and said, whoever taught her to climb did a great job at it. The woman shouted, what? You mean to say you taught her to do that? Bill Remmer. How exactly are you raising that child? Bill replied, I'm doing a fine job. Is there a problem? The woman said, of course there is. She's a girl. You should be nurturing her as if she's a delicate houseplant. Surely you're not planning on raising that pretty thing to be a tomboy, are you? Layla smiled and said, Uncle Bill, Chef Mona. How've you been? Nice weather, eh? The woman said, ugh, how awful. Bill shouted, goddamn it, there's no need to worry. As long as she's healthy, that's all that matters. The woman replied, anyhow, have you made a decision? Bill said, about what? She said, about Layla, of course. It's nearly summer. You still haven't decided where to send her? He had said he would find somewhere for the child to stay within a week, but he still had yet to make a decision. In the end, was there no other choice but for the child to be sent to an orphanage? Could an orphanage be trusted to take good care of her? Bill said, don't go too far, Layla. Layla smiled and replied, yes, Uncle Bill. I'm only going as far as the river. Where could he possibly send that child away, so that she would grow up and not be hurt any longer? He could not find the answers to these questions. And so, while Bill Remmer's thoughts deepened further, the seasons also deepened. Summer came, and the child continued to grow within his seemingly indifferent yet warm care. She blossomed into a girl who loved the beautiful woods of Arvis and the birds. Like the growing child, the forest changed every day. The leafy branches began to bear fruit, the animals expanded their territories further into the warm breeze, and every day, new life was born. As she watched the rays of light break across the surface of the river shelter, she felt as if this place were heaven, so much so that the nightmarish time spent in Lovita seemed like a distant memory. Layla sat on her favorite tree and wrote down every detail of what she saw and felt in her notebook, so that one day, when she left this place, she could look back. And if misfortune ever struck again, she would not forget her memories here. Layla said, "I'm back." "Are you going out, Uncle Bill?" "Bill said you're coming with me, so go get ready." She said, "Uncle Bill." Bill asked, "We're only going into town to buy some clothes." "No need to look like that." Layla said, "Clothes?" Bill said, "Duke Herhardt is due to return soon and that dress won't do for greeting him." Layla said, "Uncle Bill, the Duke is the lord of this estate, isn't he?" Bill replied, "That's right. Now that his academic term is over, he'll be back soon. During the summer holidays he always stays in Arvis." Layla said, "The summer holidays? Does that mean the Duke also goes to school?" Bill said, "He's 18, so he has no choice but to attend school." Layla said, "The Duke is 18? Bill said, "Is that really so surprising? Want to hear something even more astounding? He became a Duke at your age." Layla said, "What? At my age?" A man said, "Good morning, Your Grace. We shall escort you to the mansion." The Duke said, "It's a carriage." The man replied, "Yes, Your Grace. Dowager Herhardt does not trust automobiles." Another replied, "I know. To grandmother, they're nothing more than insufferably vulgar and dangerous lumps of iron." The man said, "My apologies, Your Grace. Next time." The Duke said, "No, relying on a classic once in a while is no bad thing. Let's go." The man replied, "Yes, Your Grace." Man said, "There are a few immediate items to report to you. Here is the schedule of social events while Your Grace is back in Arvis. The board of directors have raised an issue with the insurance on the trade ships. Master said absolutely no mistakes are allowed today. Is that clear? Do as you've practiced, everyone." Boys replied, "Yes, sir." Layla thinks, is it because the Duke is back today? Everybody seems to be on edge. Women said, "Layla, I see you've bought a new dress. Are you going to greet the Duke?" Layla replied, "Yes, Uncle Bill bought it for me." A voice said, "The Duke is arriving." The Duke's grandmother said, "Welcome back, Matthias." The Duke replied, "Grandmother, you've been well, I hope?" "Yes, indeed." Duke said, "Mother?" His mother said, "You've grown since last I saw you." Grandmother said, "Supper has been prepared for you. Let us all go in and eat." Layla said, "Uncle Bill?" Layla asked, "Has the Duke already gone inside?" Bill said, "It looks like we'll have to save introductions for another time." She replied, "Yes, Uncle Bill." Bill asked, "Are you sad you weren't able to meet him?" Layla said, "A little. You bought me a new dress, after all." Bill answered, "You'll see Duke Herhardt often enough in the woods, so you can ask for his permission then." Layla said, "Does the Duke like the forest too?" Bill said, "You could say that. He likes to hunt." Layla said, "Hunt? In the woods?" Bill said, "Well, it's only natural, seeing as the woods on the estate are the family's hunting grounds." Layla said, "Then does he hunt birds as well?" Bill replied, "The Duke probably enjoys hunting birds the most. You'll be surprised when you see him shoot. Despite his age, he's a cracking shot." Layla said, "Why does he hunt birds?" Bill said, "There must be plenty of food back in the mansion even without hunting them. For those noble lords, hunting is just a sport. And birds make the most interesting targets. And L for Isla?" Layla said, "I hope the Duke will come to dislike hunting." Bill thought, "Damn this blasted mouth of mine, I shouldn't have said that." Layla said, "Well, it's certainly possible." 1 week later, Layla thinks that sound. They finally hatched. Layla saw the baby birds and smiled, saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. She said, "Ah, so cute. You must be hungry. Just hold on a little longer. Your mom will be back with some food." Bill said, "Where are you going?" A woman clenched her hand and said, "Layla, I'm going away, somewhere very far." Layla said, "Then, will you be back late? But you'll be back before I finish these, won't you?" She replied, "Yes, I will." Layla thought, it's the mother bird. Layla climbed up the tree and thought, I'd better get out of the way. She'll be on guard if I'm here. All 5 baby chickadees hatched safely. Their feathers had become fluffy now. She wrote in her notebook and picked it up, thinking they start to fledge 2 weeks after birth, so maybe I'll be able to see them flying soon. I'd better let Uncle Bill know as well. Huh! Who could that be? Shall I go down first? No, I'd better wait until he's passed. The Duke stood under the tree Layla was sitting in. She thought I was going to go down after he passed. When the Duke saw a girl sitting in a tree, he pointed the gun at her. Layla thought, wait, is that a gun? Layla, said I was only waiting for you to pass so that I could come down after. Duke said, who are you? She replied, I'm Layla. Duke said, what? She said, Layla. Layla Llewellyn. Layla ran to Bill. Bill said, Layla. What happened? Layla said, Uncle Bill. I bumped into someone in the woods. It was a tall man. He had black hair and blue eyes, and his voice sounded just like the feather of a waterfowl. And he was also holding a gun. Then some more people appeared and Bill said, so that's what you're so worked up about. You must have bumped into Duke Herhardt hunting in the woods. Didn't I tell you that you'd often see him in the woods? Did you introduce yourself properly? Layla, said I, introduce myself? Absolutely introduced herself. She thinks that means, he's the Duke. That was a gunshot just now. He's hunting. Then does he hunt birds as well? The Duke probably enjoys hunting birds the most. You'll be surprised when you see him shoot. Despite his age, he's a cracking shot. Oh no! Bill said, come, child. Let's get you inside. Layla. Matthias von Herhardt, the heir to a noble family said to have everything but the throne itself, possessed the qualities and dignity of the highest nobility, as well as a restrained yet elegant manner, which led people to praise him as the masterpiece of the house of Herhardt, and everyone seemed to love him. But there was one person who lived on his estate, Layla Llewellyn, who thought otherwise. For when he visited the woods, countless birds lost their lives. For him, birds were harder to hit the smaller they were, and therefore made interesting living targets. What was worse, he never bothered to look at any of the prey that he hit. Even as they lay dying in a pool of blood, all he did was turn around and leave them be. That was all. Not long ago, the mother chickadee that had been carrying food to her chicks all day died. The fragile chicks who lost their mother all died before they could so much as set foot out of their nest. Layla, who had been burying the cold corpses of the birds during the month that the Duke had been visiting the forest, decided to name him the Beautiful Bird Butcher. Of course, that was only Layla's opinion. I wonder if it's all right for me to take a break. Uncle Bill is working hard in the heat, but if I offer to help, he'll only, you have a rest here. Bill said, Layla, if you say you're going to follow me one more time, I'm going to be very angry. Layla replied. Uncle Bill, Bill said, I can't stand children who don't do as they're told. Do you understand? Come down when I call for you. Eat some peaches if you get hungry, Layla replied. Yes, Uncle Bill. Kyle said, hello there. Layla thought, who is that? I've never seen him before. Kyle asked. Do you live here? Layla said. Huh? Yes, with Uncle Bill. Kyle said. Uncle Bill? You mean that scary groundskeeper? Layla said. Uncle Bill isn't scary, Kyle said. Really? I think he is. He's always frowning, like this, Layla said. Do you live here as well? Kyle replied. No, I came along with my father. He's the family physician, and today is the day he examines the Dowager Herhardt. I sometimes come with my father. The Dowager said I could. Kyle asked. How old are you? Layla said. I'm 12. Kyle said. Oh? The same as me. But you're, Layla said. You're small too, Kyle said. What? That can't be right. I'm the biggest in my class, Layla said. Either way, you're smaller than Uncle Bill, Kyle said. What? Kyle said. Come on, there can't be any children bigger than him. Or any adults, come to think of it, Layla replied. Well, small is small, Kyle said. Isn't that a bit of a stretch? Kyle said. It's cool in the shade. She thought, is he going to stay here? Layla cut the peaches. Kyle said, is that a knife? You're really something. To think a girl like you was carrying that around, Layla said. Uncle Bill gave it to me. Don't make fun of me. She handed them over and said, would you like some peaches? Kyle replied. Yes, please. Kyle took the peaches and said, thanks. But why do you look so down? Did something happen? Layla said. Well, the Duke and his friends keep hunting the birds. Kyle asked. So what? Layla said. They kill them for sport. Kyle said. Isn't that what hunting is? Layla said. Do you do it too? Kyle said. What? No. I don't do that. I feel sorry for them, she said. It must be so sad for the animals. Layla thought, I thought it was strange, but he's actually nice. Layla smiled and said, would you like another peach? Kyle replied. Yep. These peaches are really sweet and juicy, she said. Aren't they? I picked them myself in the woods. A voice called. Kyle! Kyle's mom said. We're going home, Kyle replied. Yes, Mom, Kyle said. I have to go now. The boys shook hands and said, Kyle Edmund. That's my name. And yours? She said. I'm Layla. Layla Llewellyn, Kyle said. Layla Llewellyn. It was good to meet you, Layla. See you again sometime. Will we be able to see each other again? Kyle said. Layla, I'll bring something tasty next time. I might be leaving this place, but it's probably better not to say anything. Kyle's mom said. Who's that, Kyle? Kyle replied. She lives with the groundskeeper. She's the same age as me, Mom. His mom said. Is that so? Bill said. Layla, come down here. Layla said, Uncle Bill. Bill asked, be careful not to fall. Layla said, have you finished your work? Bill replied, yes. Are you hungry? Layla said, I'm all right. I had some peaches earlier. Oh, that reminds me. I met someone. He's the same age as me. The Duke and his friend went away, and one of them said, really, it's astounding how every shot you take hits its mark. Another said, it's true. It's hard enough tracking such small birds with your eyes. Bill bowed and said, good afternoon, Your Grace. The Duke said, long time no see, Mr. Remmer. Bill said, I'm sorry to tell you this only now, but I'll be taking care of this child here in Arvis for the time being. I received permission from both the Dowager and Lady Herhardt, but I'm sorry I wasn't able to ask Your Grace until now. Layla bowed. A boy said, you're that girl, aren't you? The one who lives in the woods. Layla glared at them, hiding behind a tree while going around burying dead birds. Oh, that's right. The Duke thought that ridiculous girl who was sitting on the tree, who I almost shot, thinking it was a bird. The Duke said, as you wish, Mr. Remmer. Bill said, thank you, Your Grace. Bill said, let's go home, Layla. She replied, yes, Uncle Bill. Claudine said, oh my. Claudine! Act like a lady. She thought she must know that this isn't any old tea party. She can't keep sighing like that. Wine replied, I'm so lonely and bored. Claudine said, then why don't you go play with your brothers? Wine replied, they treat me like I don't exist. And they only talk about things I don't understand. Herhardt said, of course, it must be dull for you. There are no children your age here. Wine said, see, Mom? Lady Herhardt understands me. She thought, stay calm. Breathe. Wine pointed her finger and said, I've been wondering, who is that? She looks about the same age as me. May I play with her? Herhardt said, perhaps. Was she not an orphan from abroad? I don't think she would make a suitable playmate for you. Wine said, I don't mind, Lady Herhardt. I'd rather play with her than a puppy. Claudine thought honestly, what has gotten into her? Herhardt rang the bell and said, bring her over. The groundskeeper's child. The maid said, Mr. Remmer. Bill said, what is it? The maid said, Lady Herhardt wants me to bring Layla. Bill said, the mistress wants Layla. But why? The maid said, the young lady from the House of Brant says she wants to play with Layla. Bill thought, what could a lady from a noble family and a manor full of playthings want with Layla, of all people? I can't exactly say no because it's an order from the mistress. Layla said, Uncle Bill, I'll go see Lady Herhardt then come home. Bill said all right. The maid said here is the child, ma'am. Layla thought this is the first time I've seen her up close, but she really is very beautiful. Herhardt smiled and said what a pretty thing. How about you, Claudine? Is she to your liking? Wine said yes, she is. Thank you, Lady Herhardt. Layla thought, am I to her liking? What does she mean by that? In this place, filled with people dressed in luxurious, colorful clothes, no one seemed to be remotely interested in how Layla felt. Soon afterwards, the mistress ordered the maid to do something, and Layla was taken by the hand and dragged somewhere she had never been before. The maid washed Layla's body in an ornate bathroom and dressed her in clothes astonishingly white and soft. The maid's touch was rough enough to hurt, but Layla silently endured. She felt that she had to, because this was what the mistress had commanded. Layla knew that if she said the wrong thing, Uncle Bill could get into trouble. The maid said Lady Wine is the daughter of Count Brandt. She's not someone you can be on familiar terms with. Make sure you keep that in mind. Layla said yes, miss. The maid said, lady, I brought the child. Wine said hello. Come on in. Wine said, what's your name and age? She said, it's Layla Leland, my lady. I'm 12. Wine said, really? I thought you were younger. You're very small. It was the second time someone had told her that today. She thought, I have to stay calm. Think of Uncle Bill. Wine said, can you play the piano? Layla said, pardon? No, my lady. I've never seen such a big piano before. Wine said, you must know this song though? Don't you know it? Layla said, no, my lady. It's my first time hearing it. Wine said, never mind then. Do you know how to make artificial flowers? Layla said, no, my lady. Wine said, how about a game of dice? Layla replied, I've never played before. And card games? I don't know how. Wine said, so I guess you won't know how to play chess either? Layla said, my lady, I don't. Wine said, you poor thing. You really don't know a single thing. Wine said, I only waited for you because I thought you'd be fun, but what a waste of time that was. You're no better than a puppy. Layla thought, I want to go home. I want to go back to the house where Uncle Bill is. But I'll have to wait, won't I? Because Lady Wine could come back. Uncle Bill, I'm doing the right thing, aren't I? She went away. The maid said, Lady Claudine said you can keep the dress. The maid said while giving the gold coin, and this is also for you. She said again, take it. It's polite to be grateful for what they give you. Do you understand? She clenched the coin and went home, thinking I shouldn't dwell on it any longer. I want to go home in good spirits. After all, it's really nothing, a voice said, Layla? She thought, just my luck. A boy said, who's that? Wine replied, she's the girl the groundskeeper is looking after. But it's a good thing that the Duke isn't here. Wine said, goodbye, Layla. She bowed and thought, I have to get out of here, out of this strange and unfamiliar place. Uncle Bill must be waiting for me. She ran. Layla ran home and fell on the way, and the coin also fell out of her hand. At that moment, the Duke arrived. Layla saw him and met his gaze, the gaze that makes one feel the absolute worst. Duke Herhardt made Layla realize just how insignificant she was here. From a glance, his red lips seemed to tilt at one corner. As soon as she became aware of that, strangely, the pain she had been feeling all over her body seemed to disappear. All she could think about were the words of Wine Brandt, that she was no better than a puppy. Layla sat at the Duke's feet. Those words left a deep scar in her heart. She stood and went away. As she was running home, she felt something rise to the top of her throat and ripple at the surface, threatening to overflow. It wasn't until she passed the woods and came face to face with the warm glow emanating from the house that Layla realized what that feeling was. It was sorrow. Bill said, Layla, aren't you going to the woods today? Layla said, no, Uncle Bill. I think I'll stay home. Bill said, all right. That's the second day she stayed in her room, looking crestfallen. Was the house always this quiet? Layla said, you can have this, Uncle Bill. Lady Wine gave it to me. Bill thought, I see now why she's been feeling down since she visited the mansion. Layla replied, yes, but why are you giving this to me? Layla said, because I think it must be worth quite a lot. If it's worth a lot, you shouldn't throw it away just because you're upset. I thought about it for a while, and that seems like a bad thing to do. But if I give it to you, I may be able to repay you a little for all that you've done for me. So I wanted to give it to you. As soon as I saw Layla in a state of disarray, running as if she were trying to flee, I knew something had happened at the mansion that had hurt her deeply. I was only turning a blind eye because I was afraid asking her about it would make her cry. Bill said, "Damn the lot of them." "Layla, keep the money. You earned it." Layla said, "Pardon? I earned it?" Bill said, "Yes. You worked for that money. You had to deal with a bored aristocrat. It was a bloody awful job, but you did well, so you should hold your head high and take what you deserve. It's only right." Layla said, "Is that so?" Bill said, "Of course it is. Congratulations on entering the adult world, Layla. She thought I earned this money." Layla said, "But Uncle Bill, I'm still a child." Bill said, "If you can make your own living, then you're an adult, and that's what you did, Layla." Layla said, "But it was only the once, and this is just one gold coin." "Even then?" Bill said, "The world is full of good-for-nothings who never once managed to do what you just did, even when they're more than old enough. That was a good first go. You're off to a good start, so you're going to become a fine adult. You've been eating like a bird the past few days, so you better clear your plate. You know I like children who eat like cows, don't you?" Layla said, "Yes, Uncle Bill." "Uncle Bill, if I keep eating lots then I'll grow taller, won't I?" Bill chuckled and said, "I'm sure you will." "Why, did someone say something?" Layla said, "Not really, but I must look too much like a child." Bill thought, "That's because you are a child, the one who told her she was an adult just moments ago." Bill said, "Layla, do you want some apple juice?" Layla said, "Yes, please." "So, Uncle Bill, if I earn this money, it wouldn't be wrong of me to spend it, right?" Bill said, "Of course not. There must be something you want." Layla said, "I want to buy some notebooks. I've used the other ones up." "Then by all means buy some more. May I also buy some colored pencils?" Bill said, "As you wish." Layla said, "Is there anything you need, Uncle Bill?" Bill said, "Why? You want to get something for me?" Layla said, "Yes." Bill smiled and said, "What if I ask for something ridiculously expensive?" Layla said, "Then I'll save up lots of money and buy it for you." "Well, that sounds great. What a bright and charming child. She's not tall because of her slight build, but she's rather pretty, so when she grows up, she's bound to become a lovely young lady." "Wait a minute, beauty is like poison to a woman of limited means." His head was throbbing already, and if she's wandering around with nowhere to go, she's only bound to get into trouble. That's why I need to send her away to somewhere that I can trust. But how is it that no such place exists? Layla thought, damn this world to hell, and everyone in it. Bill said, "Do you want some more?" Layla said, "Yes, please." Layla thought, am I going to live to see her grow up and become a proper drinker? No, it's only for a little while. Just a little while. The days followed, and during those days, Bill thought long and hard about why he couldn't raise Layla. Layla said, "I'm off." Bill said, "Come back before it gets dark." And if a suitable place to send Layla existed, Layla said, "Yes, Uncle Bill," and the lovable nuisance that suddenly appeared out of nowhere in his life one day. And in those thoughts, the child grew. Her newly bought clothes sprang up, and her skin bloomed milky white. Her bedroom, no more than a storage closet that had been given to her temporarily, transformed into a lady's room that had a certain softness in the air. He could still see her as a child, hopping down the path. Layla said, "It's full already? I'd better come back again tomorrow." But before he knew it, Layla had become an 18-year-old lady, as fresh and as pretty as the roses he tended to. Layla said, "Uncle Bill, you're back early today." "Still here, in Arvis, with Bill Remmer." Layla said, "Look, Uncle Bill." Bill said, "What's all that, then?" "They're raspberries. An amazing haul, don't you think? I'm going to pick more tomorrow. I'm planning on making some raspberry jam." Bill said, "With all this? Are you starting a jam-making business?" Layla said, "That's not a bad idea. I picked some peaches as well. Would you like some?" "Sure. Give me one." Bill gave the peaches and said, "Now that the peaches have ripened, it must be summer again. Layla said yes, that's right. It's summer again. Layla thinks oh no, exams are just around the corner. My eyesight seems to be getting worse and worse lately. If I save up a little more, I should be able to get myself some glasses. 20 jars of raspberry jam. No, will 30 jars be enough? She thinks while I'm at it, shall I just turn all the raspberries in the woods into jam? If I sold them all, that would be worth quite a lot. I'll go early tomorrow and pick lots more of them. Bill said, Layla, it's getting late. Aren't you going to bed? Layla said no, I'm going to study a little longer. Bill said, you're working hard? Don't push yourself too much and go to sleep soon. Layla said, yes, Uncle Bill. Good night. Bill replied, good night. She studied at night. Long ago, when Uncle Bill decided to send me to school, the people around him were against the idea. They argued, what's the point of sending an orphan child to school when you're only taking care of her for a short time? Their reasoning was that even if I did end up living here, I should be married off to a suitable family or be employed as a maid at the Duke's household when I came of age. But despite their disapproval, Uncle Bill wanted me to attend school. Bill said, no need to be nervous, Layla. Layla said, yes, Uncle Bill. Bill said, time to go in, Layla. And so I followed Uncle Bill's footsteps and started to learn, little by little, about the unfamiliar world. Every day I learned something new, and I was at my happiest when my curiosity was sated. Layla said, Uncle Bill, I learned this at school today. Bill said, I see. And watching me, Uncle Bill would habitually say, Bill said, Layla, you're going to become a fine adult. A fine adult. I like that phrase. Those words were like a spell to me. On the nights I heard that, I would fall asleep imagining myself, when, one day, I would become a fine adult. I can't wait to show him how I grow up to be a fine adult, just like he said. That will be the first thing I can do to repay him for all he's done for me so far. And in order to do that, I'm going to have to ace these exams. Then I'll have a happy summer break. Summer, he will be back soon. Duke Herhardt. After graduating university, the Duke followed in family tradition and enlisted in the Royal Military Academy, and was commissioned as an army officer. He hasn't visited Arvis since 2 summers ago, as he was called to serve on the front line overseas. He's due to be back on the estate this summer, so it won't be long until gunfire starts ringing out in the woods again. Gillis Girls' School. A girl said, have you thought about what you're going to do over the break? I'm going on a trip with my family. How about you, Layla? Layla said, I'm not sure yet. I'm going to have a think about it. The girl said, look over there, Layla. He's here again. Layla said, huh? Another said, Layla. Since her eyesight deteriorated, she's needed to squint to be able to see. Layla thinks Kyle. Kyle said, Layla. A voice said, catching everyone's attention. Layla said, guys, I'm off. See you tomorrow. Another girl said, of course. Off you go. See you. Layla said, Kyle. What are you doing here? Wouldn't it have been easier for you to come to the house later? Kyle said, just 'cause. It was on my way, that's all. She thinks that's what I said, but I skipped tennis club practice in order to walk back from school with Layla. A boy said, where the hell is Kyle? Another boy said, don't tell me. Has he gone off to see that girl again? First said, yes, that's what's happened, dear club members. Kyle said, oh wow. I ran full throttle to see you, so it's hot. Do you want to get some of your favorite vanilla ice cream on the way back? He said, okay. Kyle thinks I couldn't waste this golden opportunity to spend time with Layla. You got some here. Layla said, there's a book I've been meaning to have a look at. Let's stop by the bookstore on the way. Kyle said, all right. She thinks, on something as unimportant as tennis practice, you know? She takes the ice cream. This is so good. A girl shouts, tell that Kyle to come to the club room tomorrow. I swear, I'm going to ban him permanently. Layla thinks I'll just have to take tomorrow as it comes. Kyle said, the book you were talking about is an encyclopedia of birds? Layla said, yes. The migratory birds are coming back. So I thought I'd keep a record of which birds returned to the forest over break. Kyle chuckled and said, honestly, you love birds so much. The boy said, is today the day I confess my feelings for you? And tell you, Kyle thinks again, that I like you? Kyle thinks is today the day I confess my feelings for you? And tell you that I like you? Layla said, do you have something you want to say to me, Kyle? Kyle said, what? No. So have you chosen what you want? Do you want to look at any more books? No, I'm only getting this one. Let's go home. Not yet. Kyle thinks now is not the right time. I don't want to ruin our friendship by rushing into telling Layla how I really feel, when I don't know how she feels about me. So then, I did this and that, and, of course, when I see Layla becoming prettier by the day, I do feel a little impatient, but let's just say it's something I have to endure in order to keep seeing her laugh like this for a long time to come. And to be honest, I wonder whether we need to start off being lovers. We've already known each other for a long time, so wouldn't it be better to become husband and wife straight away? Kyle and Layla go away. A husband and wife who are perfectly at ease with one another. Layla thinks I'm doing all right in my other subjects, but my scores in geometry never seem to improve, and love each other deeply, as we do now. Kyle thinks we can get married right after we graduate from college? Kyle and dreaming, I wonder what Layla will look like in a wedding dress? There's probably no bride in the world more beautiful than Layla. Kyle Edmund's wife, Layla Edmund. Sounds good. So good. Layla said, Kyle, why are you laughing? Oh, so you think it's hilarious that I failed my geometry test? Kyle said, huh? Layla said, I suppose you're good at geometry, so you just don't understand. Kyle said, wait, Layla. I was just thinking about something else. Kyle ran forward and said, hey. Wait for me. Kyle climbed the cycle and said, wait for me. Oh, by the way, have you heard the news? Layla said, what news? Kyle said that Duke Herhardt will be returning soon. It's been almost 2 years, hasn't it? Layla said, has it? I have no idea. Kyle said, everyone at the mansion seems to be making an awful fuss about the Duke's imminent arrival, but you don't seem to be at all bothered. Kyle thinks that's because I don't want to see him. Ever since that day, I haven't wanted to see him. Lady Claudine is the one who summoned me to the mansion, neglected me, then sent me away with her money, but the Duke made me feel infinitely more insignificant. That incident left me with a different kind of scar, one worse than the scorn and persecution I endured as a child while I wandered from one relative's home to another. Every time I saw the Duke, I was reminded of that day, she thinks, so I tried to avoid him at all costs. Even when I was summoned by Lady Claudine, who was visiting the mansion, and the briefest of encounters took place, I deliberately lowered my head, so that I wouldn't have to look at him. I hated him. He was a constant reminder of that memory. Kyle said, Layla, shall I become an officer as well? Layla said, an officer? Kyle said, I'll become an officer like Duke Herhardt and receive a medal, a marksman with a deadly aim who shoots through the hearts of his enemies. Lieutenant Edmund. Pretty cool, huh? Layla said, Kyle, have you forgotten? You can't even kill a chicken. Layla said, oh, come on. Why did you have to bring that up? She thinks sometime last year. Bill shouts, said Kyle Edmund. Why the hell do you keep coming to my house instead of going back to yours? Bill furiously clenched his collar and said, not to mention, why is a rich kid like you eating here instead of back at home? And eating so goddamn much at that. This won't do. From now on, that Edmund brat is banned from entering my house. Kyle thinks, no, Uncle Bill. The only time I get to spend with Layla is when I'm here. And only with the excuse of studying together. Kyle said, yes, sir. I'll work for my food. I'll do anything you ask of me. Bill said, is that right? I see, go catch tonight's dinner. Bill said, you can't even catch a chicken. You're nothing but a useless parasite of the Edmund family. Kyle said, you Uncle Bill. Kyle said, you know what? Uncle Bill has never called me by my name since then. He adds all these adjectives, then always finishes with parasite this, parasite that. Layla said, oh, but you're such a nice parasite. Kyle said, what, you're doing it as well now? She asked, but Kyle, I like that you're that kind of person. Kyle said, you're making fun of me, aren't you? Layla said, no, I'm serious. You know, I want your hands to be the hands that saves people's lives, and not the hands that shoot people. Wouldn't that be better? Kyle said of course it would. I'm going to be a doctor, after all. Then maybe I should become an army surgeon instead? Do they give medals to army surgeons as well? Layla said it's an incredible job that saves people's lives. Surely they would. Kyle said, is that right? Kyle said, a car's coming. Come this way. He said, okay. In the car, Duke in it. Kyle said, is it the Dowager Herhardt? Layla said, no, it's probably Lady Herhardt. I heard the Dowager dislikes cars. Kyle said, what, why? Why would she hate something that so elegantly combines geometric beauty with technology? Layla said again, with the geometry. Kyle said, oh, that's right. My geometry notebook I was gonna show you today. Layla said, what's wrong? Kyle said, I left it at home. Layla said, seriously? Kyle smiled and said, yes. I think I left it on my desk. Layla went away and said, then I'll go home and wait for you. Come over in time for dinner. And make sure you bring your notebook with you. Kyle said, hey, are you waiting for me or the notebook? She turned and said, ha. The notebook. Isn't it obvious? Kyle said, oh, come on. I'm going to get upset. Anyway, I'll be right back. She said, oh, come on. I'm going to get upset. Anyway, I'll be right back. Kyle said, I'll take care of it. See you later. Layla said, what should I make for dinner today? Duke said, Hessen. Hessen replied, yes, Your Grace. Stop the car. Hessen said, here? Duke said, I'm going to take a walk. Hessen said, then we will wait nearby? Duke said, no, it's all right. I'll walk. Duke thinks, just what is going on here? Hessen thinks he arrived a week ahead of schedule, so he barely managed to ready all the servants in time. And now he wants to walk back all by himself? Hessen said, then I shall accompany. Duke said, no. Duke said, I'll see you back at the mansion. Hessen said, of course, Your Grace. Duke goes to the walk. Duke in dreaming. Girl said, Matthias, you must become engaged this summer. Duke said, yes, I ought to. I agreed with my mother, as it was my duty to marry at an appropriate time and produce an heir. Duke grandmother said I thought Claudine would be the sort of lady who would be best suited to become the next Duchess. Duke thinks I also readily accepted my grandmother's comment, as Claudine Brand was a bride with an excellent pedigree and of great means. Herhardt said I will arrange a meeting with the Brandts to coincide with your return to Arvis. Duke said, yes, please do. Such is my life. A perfect life where, even though you want for nothing, and long for nothing, everything you could ever want is handed to you. To the point where, sometimes, it feels so straightforward that it becomes boring. In this life, I was the perfect child, the perfect student, and I became the perfect officer. And now, I will marry the perfect woman and become the perfect father, to make the family line even stronger as the lord of the Herhardt family. Just as my grandfather and my father did before me, so will I, Duke in back of the walk. Layla sees the Duke and wonders. Layla fell down her bicycle upon seeing the Duke. Duke sees Layla and thinks that golden hair, could it be her? The little girl that the groundskeeper wanted to take in for a while. The one who spent all day running around in the woods, burying dead birds. Layla Llewellyn. So she's still living on my estate. Layla bowed and said, I apologize, Your Grace. Duke said, Layla Llewellyn. Layla said, I'm sorry, Your Grace. Duke said, I'm talking to you. Layla said, yes, Your Grace. Please go on. I'm listening. Layla thinks if he wasn't going to say anything, why did he even? I wonder if people know that the Duke, the very paragon of an aristocrat, acts like this. Is he going to walk that slowly all the way to the mansion? Could he not put those long legs to good use and walk faster? I can't exactly overtake him. Over time, the child grew up. Duke thinks she was no longer a girl, but had turned into a woman, into Layla Llewellyn. When summer came and the roses, the national flower of Berg and the pride of the mansion, were in full bloom, and Duke Herhardt came back to the estate, the servants were busier than ever before. They had to be ready to receive numerous guests who visited the mansion to see the Duke during his visit, as well as make preparations for various parties, gatherings, and so on. Their labor was to uphold the dignity of their master. Members of the House of Brandt, one of the most prestigious noble families in Berg, only second to the Herhardts, were some of the guests whom the servants had to serve with particular care. Duke said welcome. Man said it's been a long time, Duke Herhardt and Lady Herhardt. The official reason for the Brandts' visit to the mansion was to call upon their relative's house for the summer. But it was common knowledge that the Count's only daughter, Claudine Brandt, would never visit Arvis for that sole reason. Wine said good day, Duke Herhardt. Duke said welcome, Lady Wine. This meeting took place as part of the preliminary negotiations between the two families, and so that the couple could become better acquainted with one another, before their engagement was officially announced. The purpose of the meeting was clear from the outset, and no one tried to hide that fact. None more so than Wine. Wine said this greenhouse is always beautiful. Lady Herhardt, you have managed to move heaven here. Herhardt said I have taken care of this place for a long time. I am looking forward to passing it on to a lady who knows its value. Herhardt said Matthias, please show Wine around the heaven of Arvis. We still have matters to discuss. Both are stand the chair and go away. Duke said come with me. Wine said of course, Duke Herhardt. There were no longer any signs of the little girl left in Wine. She was now a perfect voting lady. Matthias, too, escorted Wine with all the formalities required to interact with a lady he had just met. Nothing was out of the ordinary. Although the two of them had never been particularly close, they had known each other for a long time, so they knew that both Matthias von Herhardt and Wine Brandt were aristocrats through and through. This was also the biggest and the most obvious reason why they had chosen each other for the arranged marriage. Wine said the birds in this greenhouse are so pretty. And they take to people so well. I wonder, what's your secret? Oldman said we clip their wings, my lady. Wine said the wings? Wouldn't that hurt them? Oldman said we clip only the feathers such that it does not cause pain. Would you like to see? Wine said would that be all right, Duke Herhardt? Duke said as you wish, my lady. Oldman clenched the bird in hand. Duke said what bird is that? Oldman replied it's a canary, your grace. Canaries sing beautifully. This one is guarded, as it has yet to experience much human contact. However, once you clip the tips of both wings, it cannot fly far enough to escape, and it will end up having a milder temper. Wine said must you clip the wings? Oldman cutting the wing of bird and said birds that are able to fly freely can rarely be tamed by people. If anything, this is also good for the birds, as it prevents them from flying into dangerous places and becoming lost or injured. Oldman said oh dear. It won't be tamed immediately, your grace. It takes a little getting used to, after all. Would you like to try and tame this one, my lady? Wine said I'm happy to just look at them. Thank you for satisfying my curiosity. Let us go back to our table, Duke Herhardt. Duke said take it to my room. Oldman said I beg your pardon? Duke said that bird? My canary. Maid said thanks, Layla. That must have been a lot to carry. Layla said it wasn't heavy at all. Is someone visiting the mansion? Maid replied yes, Count Brandt and his family are coming soon. Layla replied oh, Layla thinking Lady Wine must be accompanying them this year. Well, she always comes to visit on the years that the Duke is back home. Maid whispered I hear the Duke and Lady Claudine are going to be engaged. Layla said really? Engaged? Maid replied yes. I always wondered which lady would make a worthy bride for our Duke. Looks like all those years of visiting the manor with the Countess finally paid off. Layla thinks I thought the woods seemed quiet, even though the Duke had returned, but it was only because such an important event was about to take place. Then I should finish off today, before the Duke takes over the forest, and before Lady Wine decides to call for me. Hessen said we've prepared everything you would need in the guest house. There's a board meeting scheduled for this afternoon, so I'll have the car waiting for you by noon. Duke nodded his head. A place where the river Schulter and the forest of Arvis can be seen at a glance. Liking the view, Matthias had the boathouse converted into a guest house. As it was rare for his grandmother and his mother to walk all the way out here, by the riverbank, the guest house was a world of his own. When his schedule was free, he would visit, and gaze languidly at the forest or the river, read, or if those activities bored him, he would take a nap. The guest house was where he felt at home, no matter what he was doing. And above all, he liked nothing better than surrendering himself to the currents of the river. The leafy green branches and the flashes of the sky in between, the sound of the leaves rustling against the wind, and birdsong. He felt as if the commotion of the last few days of talk about the engagement, Duke thinking again, had broken into small pieces and faded away into the tranquility of the rushing river. As expected, the negotiations of the marriage, between the houses of Herhardt and Brandt went smoothly. They would be engaged for 1 year. Before the end of the summer, their engagement would be announced to the world. Now that he had earned all the honors that was required of Duke Herhardt, there was no need for him to remain an officer for much longer. After spending another year or 2 in the Guards, he would be discharged to marry and concentrate on the family business. Just as he had until now, his life would continue to flow like a gently rolling river. Just as he wished, it would go on perfectly. Layla was sitting on the tree and eating the peaches. At that moment her eyes fell on the river, and she saw that the Duke was swimming in the river. Layla thinks, what's that? Is that a person? A man? Wait, could that naked man be Duke Herhardt? Oh my gosh! It really is the Duke. She's shocked and thinking, what on earth is he doing over there? And in such an indecent state? No! Don't look! Close your eyes. Just carry on with what you were doing. Why are you coming over this way? Layla said, and no. Don't come over here. She shouted, don't come this way. Layla ran away. Kyle said, don't come this way. I was just on my way to find you. Uncle Bill said you were picking rasp. Are you okay, Layla? Why are you running? She said, Kyle. Kyle said, what's going on? Did something happen in the woods? Did you run into a wild animal or something? Maybe a wild animal would have been better. Kyle clenched his shoulder and said, mean? Hey, get it together, Layla. What's gotten into you? If it wasn't a wild animal, then did you see a ghost? She thinks no. I saw something far scarier. Kyle said, weren't you out picking raspberries? Layla said, oh, that's right. My raspberries. Kyle said, I don't know what's going on, but let's go and get them together. She said, Ionin. Kyle said, why not? Layla's face is red and she shouted, and no reason. I just don't want to. Kyle sees her wonderfully. Duke said, raspberries? Is she planning on picking all the raspberries in Arvis? Oh, Layla. Who knew she'd still be climbing trees? Master said, how's that? It's much clearer, isn't it? Layla said, it's as if I'm seeing the world for the first time. Master said, that's quite understandable. Your eyesight wasn't great, after all. It must have been frustrating. Layla replied, apart from not being able to read properly, it's been fine. Master said, then try reading these small letters here. Are they clearer? She replied, yes, they are. She thought, finally, I got myself some glasses. And I paid for them myself. Thank you, all the raspberries of Arvis. I'd better thank myself for stirring jam all day in front of the fire when the weather was so hot, too. Master said, thank you. Have a good day. She said, come again soon. But why do I keep remembering those awful memories on such a lovely day as today? Thank goodness I managed to get my glasses. What on earth got into the Duke? I know he owns the estate, but does he really have to swim naked in broad daylight? What if someone sees? I think I'll give the river a wide berth until the Duke leaves. It's a shame I won't be able to visit my favorite spot for a while, but I'm going to make sure I never bump into him. Wine, said Layla. She thought that familiar voice, surely it can't be Lady Wine. Wine said, long time no see, Layla. Layla bowed and said, oh, hello, Duke Herhardt, my lady. Wine thought, she's become a proper lady since I last saw her. Wine said, I nearly didn't recognize you because of your glasses. How have you been? Layla replied, I've been well, my lady. Wine said, we're just on our way to have some tea at the hotel over there. Come with us, Layla. Layla replied, I beg your pardon? Wine said, it's been a while since we last saw each other, and it would be lovely to have a cup of tea with you. Would that be all right, Duke Herhardt? Wine said, come. Layla replied, yes, my lady. I hope this won't take long. I'm supposed to meet Kyle in town. Good thing there's still some time until I have to leave. Why on earth did Lady Claudine want me to accompany her? It's not as if she'll have much to talk about with me, anyway. Layla didn't understand the reasoning behind it, but she decided to stop wondering why. She had been used to them acting as if she were invisible since she was 12 years old. Today, like all days, all she had to do was accept the status quo. The only problem was that, thanks to her glasses, Layla could see the Duke, who was sat facing her, all too clearly. Those eyes, the Duke thought when I was younger. I foolishly thought that if I looked into the glassy blue eyes of the Duke, I would be able to hear a clear, crisp ringing sound. Layla thought, but now, I feel extremely uncomfortable. I can't believe we're sitting face to face, just as I swore that I would never run into him. But why does it feel like I'm the only one who's ill at ease? Isn't the Duke embarrassed by what happened that day? Isn't it normal for the person whose body has been exposed to be embarrassed? Come to think of it, I've heard that to aristocrats, a servant is akin to a painting or a piece of furniture. From that perspective, his response is understandable. No one would be embarrassed about being naked in front of furniture, and no furniture would be embarrassed to see a naked person. So from now on, I'm a piece of furniture. A chair without any thoughts or feelings. Wine said, oh, Layla? How's school? Is it fun? Layla said, yes, my lady. Wine said, I suppose you'll be graduating next year. What do you plan to do afterwards? Layla said, I'm preparing to qualify as a teacher. Wine said, a teacher? I see, that's a wonderful goal. It suits you very well. Isn't that right, Duke Herhardt? The Duke said yes. Oh, by the way, for the upcoming party, how about we also invite that lady as well? Layla said, I beg your pardon, your grace and my lady. Wine said, but may I be excused? I promised to meet my friend and it's almost time. Oh? Then you may leave. It was good to see you today, Layla. Layla bowed and said, if you'll excuse me. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of your time. Kyle and Layla sat on the bench and Kyle said, you scoured the whole forest to make jam and to sell it, and now you've finally reached your goal. You're amazing, Miss Llewellyn. Don't tease me. And why do you keep smiling like that? Do I look that strange in glasses? I'm not used to them yet. You know what? If I pull off your glasses like this, your eyes become as small as a mouse's. Layla said, hey. Cut it out. Kyle said, all right. All right. You're just like Uncle Bill when you're mad. Come on, let's eat. I played tennis earlier, so I'm hungry. Have something to drink as well. Is there a traffic jam? Yes, my lady. I think the carriage up ahead is blocking the road. So the friend she went to meet is that boy. I believe that's Kyle Edmund, the son of the family doctor. Layla Llewellyn didn't touch her cup of tea at the cafe. She just sat up straight with her hands on her lap the whole time. All she did was leave quietly, the Duke thought, with a look of pure discomfort and anxiety on her face. As she fled, she left me, and went to the boy, because she wanted to go see him. She left me, to go meet the boy. Claudine said, that girl, could she be that girl from before? The orphan who was scrounging off the groundskeeper, I mean. To think she's still living here. Wine said, yes, Mom. That's her. She's pretty, isn't she? She seems to be becoming more beautiful by the day. Claudine said, so, that doesn't bother you? She thought, how could she not be fazed? Wine already knew Layla was a pretty girl, but seeing her after all these years, Layla had exceeded her expectations. She had a petite frame characteristic of women from Lovita, delicate and beautiful features, mysterious green eyes, and clear, fair skin. This was why Claudine had suddenly proposed that Layla accompany them. Wine thought back, we're just on our way to have some tea at the hotel over there. Come with us, Layla. It's been a while since we last saw each other, and it would be lovely to have a cup of tea with you. She was curious. How will Duke Herhardt react to seeing a woman who has grown to be a beauty on his estate? And he, in turn, completely lived up to her expectations by responding with the correct amount of interest and indifference, and with perfect dignity and restraint. Wine said, I know what you're worried about, Mom, but I don't want to dwell on that sort of thing. Claudine said, that's because you're still too young to know what men are really like. If I were you, Wine said, should I eliminate every single beautiful woman who crosses paths with the dukes? As you said, Mom, I'm still young and I don't yet know the ways of men. But I do know that those of a high repute have a mistress or two. Claudine said, my goodness, Wine. Yes, perhaps something like that may happen, and it would be nothing new. The Duke may be swept away by his lust for a beautiful woman, just like her father and countless other men. But a man who knows to keep a mistress as a mistress alone is harmless. What would be troublesome is a man who fails to treat a mistress as just that. Matthias von Herhardt is definitely the former. He's the head of his family who won't renounce what is his for the sake of some fleeting lust. Wine said, I hope it never comes to that, but if the Duke were to have a mistress, I'd rather it be someone like her. She's the kind of woman who would never dare to threaten my position, and one that I could control in the palm of my hand. Claudine said, my goodness, Wine. How can you say such things? Really, you're terrible. Wine thought, my mother has a weak constitution and had a series of miscarriages before she managed to give birth to me. Claudine said, either way, no good can come of having a girl like that close to Matthias. I wonder why we've never seen her before, even though we've visited every year. Wine thought, my mother has lived in constant fear that my father would stop loving her, as she failed to produce an heir, and that a young, beautiful woman would give birth to his son and steal him away from her. I felt sorry for my poor mother. Claudine turned and said I should go talk to the Herhardts about this. Wine thought, but at the same time, I was as sick of her as much as I pitied her. Wine said, Mom, even if Duke Herhardt were to be interested in that beautiful, low-born girl, what would it matter? She would only ever be a mistress, after all. Claudine said, Wine, my child, you know nothing of love, and how reckless it can make someone. Wine thought, love? I promised myself, as I watched you cry every night over the man you loved, that I would never live like you, Mom. What I want isn't some love that will be discarded when it fades, but a marriage that will let me keep my dignity and class. Kyle said, Layla. I'm here. Kyle thought she must have gone to help Uncle Bill with his work. They should be back soon, so I'll just wait here. The future Mrs. Edmund was pretty, even with glasses. Layla said, Kyle, you bought the sandwiches, so I'll buy you dessert. Kyle replied, it's fine. No need to keep tabs. Kyle thought, whenever I go and meet Layla, I leave my bike at home because I want to ride on the same bike as her. I wouldn't mind if she grabbed on harder. Layla said, you know, Kyle? Kyle replied, yeah? Layla said, I'll still buy you some ice cream. Kyle thought I shouldn't be too hasty. I have to wait until the right moment. I told myself that's what I'd do. Layla said, here. Kyle thought, but my resolve can't help but be melted away in front of Layla. My heart pounds at the mere touch of her fingertips. My body feels hot all over, and at times I have dreams that I feel guilty about after I wake up. Above all, what makes it so hard to bear, Layla said, the clouds are so pretty today, don't you think? Kyle said, yes, they are. He thought, is the fear and anxiety that someone may suddenly appear and take Layla away from me. If that were to happen, wouldn't it be better for me to brashly confess my feelings for her? Layla said, Kyle. Kyle thought, that's Layla's voice. Kyle said, la. Layla said, Kyle. Kyle said, hey. What's up with that tack hat? Bill thought, what? Kyle said, ha ha ha, hello, Uncle Bill. Wow. I thought a giant vase was walking towards me. Ow, my stomach hurts from laughing. Kyle said, you couldn't have actually bought that. Did you pick it up on the street somewhere? Layla replied, I didn't just find it somewhere. Uncle Bill bought it for me as a present. Kyle said, wow. Now that I've gotten a closer look, it's really gorgeous. What great taste you have, Uncle Bill, Layla said, here, eat up. Kyle said, thank you for the food. Kyle thought, at least she's still willing to feed me. Munch munch. Kyle said, Layla. Are you still angry with me? Layla replied, yes. Kyle said, hey, come on. I'm sorry. If I'd known, I wouldn't have said that. Anyway, why did Uncle Bill buy you a hat? Layla said, I asked him to. Kyle said you did? But you've never asked him for anything like that before. Layla said, well, he must have been very upset that I bought such expensive glasses without telling him. Bill said, how could you have kept this from me, Layla? Do you feel you can't depend on me? Layla replied, no, Uncle Bill. That's not it at all. Bill said, you've done so much for me over the years, so I wanted to try to buy these glasses myself. Layla thought he's never been angry with me before. He looked so sad, no matter what I said. You don't know how awkward things were between us after that. Layla said, Uncle Bill, after thinking what I could do, that's why I asked him to buy me a really, really pretty hat. Layla said, and then he bought this hat for me. Layla said he chose it himself, although somebody made fun of it for being tacky. Kyle said, hey, you should have told me about that. Now I feel bad for teasing you about such a thoughtful gift. Layla said, I wonder who laughed his head off as soon as he saw it? Bill said, oh, come on. Layla thought to Uncle Bill, flowers are the most beautiful things in the world. A hat with lots of flowers is the most beautiful hat to him. I know just how special it was for a gruff man like Uncle Bill to have walked into a women's clothing store by himself to buy this, and I know just how much love that took. Layla said to me, his hat is the prettiest, most lovable hat in the world. So don't make fun of it from now on, okay? Bill said, okay. You parasite. You still here? Kyle thought the man who loves Layla Llewellyn will have to come to terms with being ranked second for her affections. Bill said, Layla, I'm popping into town for a bit. Layla said, yes, Uncle Bill. Kyle thought as the number one spot will always be taken by Uncle Bill. I know it's only natural, but I'm strangely jealous and feeling left out. She hasn't looked at me even once. Layla thought, who's the culprit? Next page. Next page. Kyle thought I shouldn't have lent her that book. I wonder if Layla knows just how pretty she looks when she's engrossed in a book, and how adorable she is when she's munching on a biscuit. Kyle said, hey, Layla. You know, the Duke came in on horseback. Both Kyle and Layla bowed and said, good day, Your Grace. Layla thought, talk about bad timing. Stop. They're all gone now. Duke said, where is Mr. Remmer? Layla replied, he went into town for a bit. Is something the matter? Duke said, Miss Llewellyn, I'm sure you are capable of fetching some roses. Layla replied, could I bring you some roses from the garden? Duke said, yes. Pick a bunch and bring them to the guest house. Kyle thought, and bring them to the guest house. Kyle said, let me help you. I'll come with you. Layla said, it's all right. It's nothing, really. Kyle said, then shall I wait for you here? Layla said, you should go home. If Mrs. Edmund finds out that you're hanging out here again, she's going to be so mad. Why don't you go home and study? That way you won't get me into trouble as well. Layla thought, it's a little strange. Why would he come all the way out here just to ask for some roses? Well, maybe he was just passing through and popped in. Right, there's nothing wrong with that, but why do I feel so strange? No, we're talking about Duke Herhardt here, the impeccable aristocrat who's about to be engaged. I've just been sensitive lately. Layla said, see you, Kyle. Perhaps I've just been too anxious lately. Duke said, Layla. Layla said, I brought the flowers you asked for, Your Grace. Duke said, do it again. Layla said, I beg your pardon. Duke said in less loud colors. Again. Duke said in less loud colors. Again. Layla said, yes, Your Grace. Layla thought, go pick some again? In less loud colors? I see. So you aren't happy with the roses I picked out. If you were going to be so fussy, why couldn't you have just told me the colors you wanted in the first place? I may not be aware of the ins and outs of the estate, but I do know that this guest house is the Duke's personal space. It's a place where visitors rarely come by, and the number of servants who come and go are limited. So for the Duke to ask me to bring some flowers to such a private space means they're probably for Lady Claudine, whom he will be engaged to soon. So I deliberately picked eye-catching colors to suit her tastes, but just look at where it's landed me. As I thought, the one thing I can say for certain is that everyone's perception of the Duke couldn't be more wrong. There's no way someone who lets others suffer under the scorching sun in the middle of summer can be a good person. I don't know about anyone else, but I really hate the Duke. I'm going to give him the evil eye before I go in. She said, thank you for your hard work, Layla. Layla said, oh, hello? Are you going somewhere? The man said, we need to get back to the mansion. Take it easy. She thought, wait a minute, that means the Duke is alone in the guest house right now. My heart is pounding for no reason. Is he asleep? He looks defenseless and laid back. He seems like a completely different person. I've only ever seen him buttoned up and dressed properly. Oh right, but what should I do? Should I wait until he wakes up, or should I just leave the roses here? Layla said, I brought some fresh roses, Your Grace. Will I need to go and pick them again? Duke said, if I said yes, would you go? Layla said, if I made a mistake, I suppose I should. But this time, please tell me which colors you would like. Layla thought the heat must have gone to my head. I accidentally blurted out what I was thinking. Duke said, it will do, sit. Layla thought I must have picked out the right colors this time. Layla said, thank you, but no, Your Grace. If you're satisfied, I'll get going. Duke said, Miss Llewellyn, is it also not your job to put the flowers you brought into a vase? Layla said, but I'm not very good at flower arranging. Duke said, then, should I be the one to do it? Layla thought the only people in the guest house right now are the Duke and me, just the two of us, which means this is something I must do, even if I'm not very good at it. When I look at her, I'm reminded of the canary in my bedroom. My golden bird struggled in my hands and stayed quiet after first being moved to my bedroom. But as time passed, she slowly began to let down her guard and became more and more attached to me, to the point that I almost forgot how hard canaries are to tame. Now, she sits on my hand, rubs herself against me, and looks into my eyes while she sings beautiful tunes, as if she's telling me a sweet story. And you, Layla Llewellyn, how will you be? She said, oh no. There's no water in here. Mumble mumble. Layla said, it's done, Your Grace. I hope it's to your liking? Layla said, I'm no good at flower arranging. Duke thought she wasn't lying when she said that. Duke said, it's awful. Layla said, apologies. I'll bring a maid who's skilled at this sort of thing. Duke said, sit. Layla said, I beg your pardon. Duke said, sit, Layla. Have some. It's that perplexed look again. Duke thought, is she not happy with the payment for her services? She liked it before. She enjoyed her food and smiled a lot, like sunshine. If that's the sort of thing you like, then I'm prepared to pay you with whatever is satisfactory. After all, even though the results were terrible, you still carried out the groundskeeper's work for him. Layla said, thank you, Your Grace, but I'm all right. Unless there's more for me to do, I'll take my leave. Well, if that's what you truly want, Duke said, Layla. Do you think I'm asking? Layla said, unless there's more for me to do, I'll take my leave. She thought, well, if that's what you truly want. The Duke said, Layla. Do you think I'm asking? I know he's not really asking. After all, he doesn't care about my feelings at all, so saying no would be pointless. If I refuse him again, it may lead to something worse. The best thing I can do is to eat as quickly as possible and leave, but I'm already full from lunch, as well as the snacks I had. Plus, being in the sun while going back and forth from the garden to the guest house means I can't stomach anything right now. She thought again, is this a genuine reward for running an errand for him, or a punishment for the terrible flower arrangement? It's probably the latter. And why does he keep staring at me like that? She hasn't changed in the slightest. Even as a child, she would look down and flee whenever she ran into me, as if she had seen something she shouldn't have, to the point that it would irritate me. The Duke said, Layla, you're a lady. You should take your hat off when you're indoors. She thought I could endure everything he did to me, the way he casually laughed after putting me in such a difficult position, or ordering me about like this as if my feelings are worth nothing, but I won't let him make fun of the gift Uncle Bill got me. Layla said, I'm going to head home now, so please give me back my hat, Your Grace. The Duke said, then eat. Eat, take the hat and leave. It's simple enough. Layla replied, no, I don't want to. I don't want to eat any more. I really can't, so please give me back my hat. The Duke said, you don't want to? Layla replied, I'm sorry, it's all my fault. Please just give it back. She said, Your Grace. Give it back. Please? The Duke threw the cap outside, and Layla ran after it to get it. Layla thought, what should I do? There's no way I can reach it from here. I need to retrieve it before it floats further away. I have to do something. Layla thought of the past. If you're going to stay in this house, you have to go through the initiation. They fell into the river and she shouted, help. Good luck getting yourself out. I'm scared, so scared. Bill said, well, I never knew there were so many hats in the world. I bought it from Lynn's. You can go exchange it if you don't like it. Layla said, did you pick it out yourself? It's beautiful, Uncle Bill. It's almost too pretty to wear. Bill said, you like it then? Layla replied, of course I do. How do I look? Does it suit me? Bill smiled and said, yes. It looks great on you. Don't tell me. Layla went toward the water. Bill thought, is she really planning on going in the river to retrieve that hat? The water is shallow just by the building, but a few feet further and her feet won't reach the bottom. She said, almost there. She grabbed her cap and said, there. I got. The Duke saw her and said, eat, take the hat and leave. What a fuss to make over something so simple, the Duke thought, and leave. What a fuss to make over something so simple. As soon as Layla went to grab the cap and drowned, meanwhile he went into the water and pulled Layla out. The Duke thought, unbelievable. She's still desperately clutching at that thing after nearly drowning. It's only a hat. Layla thought, how could he do something like this? How could he? How could he laugh? He's the one who's to blame for all this. All the ornaments on the hat are wet. I don't care if he gets some water on him. He's already wet anyway. The Duke said, I don't care if he gets some water on him. He's already wet anyway. This is starting to become less fun for me. How could I be enjoying myself? Layla said, why, Cha, are you doing this to me? The Duke said, Layla, you should be thanking me first for saving your life. Layla thought, what did you just say? Layla said, I believe none of this would have happened if your grace hadn't thrown my hat into the river. The Duke raised his hand and said, no, that's not it. None of this would have happened if you had quietly eaten your sandwich and then left, or if you hadn't been foolish enough to jump into the water when you didn't know how to swim. I feel like my anger and frustration are about to spew out of my mouth, but I have to hold it in. She thought, after all, the Duke is the master of Arvis. I can't let my behavior put Uncle Bill in a difficult position. I have to do this for Uncle Bill. For Uncle Bill. Uncle Bill, she bowed and replied to the Duke, thank you for saving me, Your Grace. The Duke said again, thank me again. Like a lady. Layla thought, Uncle Bill, I beg your pardon, Your Grace, but I'm not a lady like those noblewomen. The Duke said, even so, you should be a lady in front of me. Whatever you may be, I'm a gentleman, after all. She bowed and said, thank you for saving me, Your Grace. The Duke said, I'll be going now. Goodbye. Layla thought, I'm not going to fall today. I'm not going to let him treat me like a plaything anymore. And I won't cry. I won't cry over someone like that. I won't. After breaking free from the gaze of those blue eyes, as cold as the river, Layla began to run home, just as she had done when she was a child, clutching a gold coin. Her eyes were now so red that not even the shadow of her hat could hide them. Embarrassed and angry, Layla ran even harder. She had stumbled across him one day while he was out walking in the woods with wine. The image of an elegant gentleman escorting a beautiful girl was like a scene from a fairy tale or a romance novel. Without realizing it, Layla stood and watched him. As they reached the end of the path, a gust of wind blew Claudine's hat off. He slowly walked to the side of the path, picked the hat up, and returned it to her. Layla thought his unhurried movements were very beautiful. And today, he used the same beautiful movements from that day to insult her, with an impassive expression, as if to say that what had happened was of no significance. Even now, whenever she was in front of him, Layla felt as small as ever. For some reason, that fact, which was nothing new, tore her heart up even more today than it had before. Layla thought seriously, what was it again? Saving my life? Again, like a lady? In order to contain her anger at the Duke, which kept rearing its head inside her, she kicked the fruit alongside the road with all her might. Frowning in frustration at her own blurred vision, while watching the innocent fruit roll away, Layla said, "Wait a minute." Layla realized the fatal mistake she had just made. She said, "Oh? My glasses." As she looked back, the path she had traveled suddenly seemed a long way away. She thought as evening approached, the breeze blowing through the guest house became cooler. The late summer afternoon felt dull and still. The Duke clenched the glasses and said her eyesight must be quite poor. I suppose that's why she was always frowning. Layla thought beyond the gold-rimmed glasses. He remembered a young girl peering at him with a sulky frown on her face. She was a shabby, plain girl, yet she had unusually bright eyes. Unbeknownst to him, the child, who was only supposed to be staying in Arvis for a short while, had grown up inside his realm and turned into a woman. She still had those unusually bright green eyes, and she smelled fresh and sweet. She smelled of roses, the same ones that filled the garden in summertime. The Duke said, "Layla?" Layla thought he whispered her name, which seemed to him like the heat of midsummer. The Duke said, "Layla, Llewellyn." It tickled the tip of his tongue as he spoke it, which he found bothersome. He put the glasses that he had repeatedly been playing with into a drawer, and the memory of those green eyes behind them evaporated. Matthias took a long shower. He changed into his clothes and fixed his hair. By the time he left the guest house to attend the dinner, he turned into the perfect picture of Duke Herhardt, as he had always been. A man said, "We'll start making our way, Your Grace." It was an uneventful midsummer's evening. Bill said one of the crows must have taken it again. They love anything that's shiny. You remember your hairpin, don't you? Layla said, "Of course. How could I forget? It was a gift from you on my 13th birthday. I was saving it for a special occasion, and one of them stole it the first time I decided to wear it. You know just how upset I was." Bill said, "Yes, I remember. You searched every crow's nest in the woods." Bill thought she still didn't find it in the end. Layla said, "If something like that ever happens again, no matter how much I love birds, I may end up hating crows." Bill said, "Never mind. We can always get you a new pair of glasses, so don't be too upset. If you can't find them, you must tell me. All right, Layla? Don't try to shoulder everything by yourself." Layla said, "Yes, Uncle Bill." Layla thought it's better not to tell him that the Duke threw the hat into the river, which led me to leaving my glasses at the dock. That will only make him feel worse. I'm sure they'll still be where I left them, so I should go fetch them quietly in the early hours of the morning. At dawn the next day, at the guest house, Layla thought, "Wait, they aren't here? Why? What happened? I definitely left them here, on top of my handkerchief." Layla thought the handkerchief flew away, which means the glasses that were on top are gone too. Could it be the Duke moved them? No, it can't be. That doesn't make any sense. Why would the Duke take the glasses? Layla said, "A crow? Is it you again? Did you take them again, like last time? Where are you going? Hey! Where do you live? Did you seriously take my glasses?" She thought my glasses, so there are two suspects. The crow or the Duke. Kyle said, "Hi, Phoebe." Phoebe chirped. Name, Phoebe. Occupation, delivers Layla Llewellyn's letters, her second year on the job. A mountain pigeon that Layla trained through the sheer force of will. Interesting facts, isn't afraid of people, eats a lot. Kyle, taking the letter on his leg, thought, "No treat for me? A rewarding meal?" Kyle thought, "We're supposed to be meeting later at the library, so why did she send me a letter? Maybe she's running late?" Layla wrote in the letter, "Kyle, I've lost my glasses. I won't be able to go to the library with you today as I need to go look for them. I'm so sorry." Kyle said, "What?" Kyle thought she worked incredibly hard to buy those glasses. How could she have lost them? Kyle's mother said, "Kyle, where are you going? You should be studying." Kyle said, "The library? I'm going there to study, Mom." His mom said, "You're not meeting up with Layla again, are you?" Kyle said, "She'll be there as well. See you later." Mom said, "Wait. Kyle." His mom clenched her head and said, "Layla this, Layla that. All day, every day. How long is he going to waste time on that girl for? Now is such an important time for him. Kyle said Layla. Layla, washing the cloth, saw Kyle and said Kyle. Kyle said, how on earth did you lose your glasses? Have you found them? Layla said no. She shook the cloth and said, I haven't found them yet. The Duke said, I'll buy you a new pair, Layla. Let's go into town tomorrow. Layla said, you? But why would you, Kyle? Kyle said, huh? And thought, oh no. My emotions got the better of me and I forgot what Layla's like for a moment. Layla said, thanks for the offer, Kyle, but I can't accept that, and I would really like to find my glasses. Kyle thought, I've known Layla since she was small, and I know what that look in her eyes means. It means she won't back down no matter what anyone tells her, and she will stubbornly achieve anything she sets her mind to. Layla climbed the tree and saw the nest, a crow's nest. Kyle said, are they there? Layla said, no, doesn't look like it. Kyle said, oh? Layla, watch out. Layla said, what? She shouted, eek. Okay, I'm leaving. I'm leaving. They're not here either. Right. On to the next one. Kyle thought, as expected, she's so tenacious. Layla said, Kyle, shouldn't you be going home now? She thought, thanks for coming along, but I'll be fine on my own. Kyle said, no, let's go together. Kyle thought, even if I tried to dissuade her, she's too stubborn to listen, and I can't let her go alone in case she gets hurt. Plus, it's kind of funny to see her like this. In the car, the Duke and Hessen were going along. Hessen said, what are those kids up to now? The Duke said, I heard. Hessen said that a crow took Layla's glasses, so they're around looking in crows' nests. The Duke thought all sorts of news travels in the servants' social circles. A crow? She must be aware that she left the glasses on the dock herself. But she's searching around crows' nests? Does she truly not know, or does she not want to know? Layla saw him and thought, the Duke. Why was he looking at me like that? I feel like something bad is going to happen. Oh, I need to make sure I'm absolutely certain. Kyle said, what are you doing, Layla? Coming. The next crow's nest should be, she thought, the crow, or the Duke. I have to weed out one prime suspect of the two. Layla continued to roam through the forest for several more days. Kyle gladly accompanied her. Their futile efforts were so admirable that Matthias turned a blind eye, and it amused him to see them poking around the birds' nests when the birds were entirely blameless. But as time went on, he started becoming tired of their foolishness, and the way he kept taking time out of his busy schedule to visit the guest house multiple days in a row. Hessen said, the Duke Marquis Lindman is expected to arrive around noon today. The Duke said, oh, Riet is? He's arriving earlier than I thought. Lady Herhardt has instructed for particular attention to be paid to the luncheon, and if you have no prior engagements, she has also requested for your Grace to attend. The Duke said, yes, of course. Then I'll have the car waiting for you. I hope you have a good time, Your Grace. Layla said, I apologize for my unexpected visit, Your Grace. She was extremely polite. The Duke thought it's a far cry from before when she was shaking water off her hat and skirt in front of me. The Duke said, so, to what do I owe the pleasure? Layla said, I apologize, but there's something I need to ask you. The Duke stood and picked up the call. Layla thought, I'm not certain, but it sounds like they're talking about a complicated contract. Come to think of it, he must still work, even in the guest house. Well, the Herhardt family business must be huge, so it's no wonder he's busy all the time. But then how is it that the Duke always looks so relaxed and aloof? Even when he smiles, his eyes are still, and his upright posture is always controlled, as if it's second nature to him. Even when he's having a conversation with someone over the phone, there's a sense of power and dignity that comes from being the head of the household, which tends to overwhelm the person he's speaking to. It's no wonder everyone praises him as being the perfect Duke Herhardt. Right, so the fact that someone as grand as him, the Duke Herhardt that everyone so admires, could be the one who took my glasses. Really, I almost feel pathetic coming back here to ask such a question. It was a mistake to come here. It's a ridiculous idea. I should just go look in those nests I haven't managed to climb up to yet. Layla bowed and said goodbye, Your Grace. I'll take my leave. The Duke said wait. She thought what? The Duke said go on. Say what you were meaning to ask. Layla said the day I fell in the water, I left my glasses on the dock. I was wondering if you had seen them, or maybe I hid them. Layla said pardon? Did your Grace hide my glasses? The Duke said what do you think? Layla thought is he making fun of me again? Layla said I don't think you would do such a thing. The Duke said and why is that? Layla said that would be a cruel thing to do, Your Grace, Master Sweet. The Duke said how nice it is to have a social gathering here, in such a private setting. His Grace must be generous when it comes to granting his fiancée's requests. Wine said are you drunk yet? We're not engaged yet. I'm embarrassed to hear you keep calling me that. A man said what does it matter? It's the truth. Another man smiled and said that's right. It's just among us. Everyone here knows that Wine is going to become the next Duchess. Wine said it looks like we all had a little too much to drink. Shall we get going? That would be a shame. We've only just sat down. I apologize if you were offended, please forgive us, Duchess Herhardt. A man said by the way, what is that? A birdcage? Now this is rather shocking. Matthias, what strange new hobby is this? The Duke said I thought I'd keep one as a pet. The man said you, of all people? Keep a bird? Why, are you going to raise it just to shoot it? Oh dear, poor thing. It looks like that bird has no idea just what kind of a man the Duke is. Who would have thought? A bird that has entrusted its own life to a master hunter of birds. The Duke said I don't know whether it's foolish or pitiful. The man said what do you think, Wine? She said who knows? Perhaps it's both. I see it's the same bird you brought from the conservatory not long ago. Have you named it? If you haven't, then I'd like to. The Duke replied it's not worth your efforts, my lady. It's still only a bird, after all. The man smiled and said as I thought, it is a foolish and idiotic bird to think it loves a hunter who won't even allow it to be named. Layla was sleeping on the bed and dreaming. In her dream she said to the Duke I don't think you would do such a thing. The Duke replied and why is that? Layla said that would be a cruel thing to do, Your Grace. It took a lot of courage for me to go there, Hessen said, Your Grace. The Duke replied what is it? Hessen said there's an urgent telegram for you. You should see to it right away. Layla thought he gave me a cold knock on the head, and I had to leave before I could ask him more about the glasses. But I could tell for certain that it was the Duke, and not a crow, who had taken them. But why on earth would he do that? Does he like shiny things like a crow? Layla woke up and thought, oh no, what should I do now? How many times do I have to go back and ask before he'll give them back? I don't think he'll concede so easily. Raging silently because it's late, but I can't just sit around and do nothing. Is there a better plan? It's likely that the glasses are somewhere within the guest house. I doubt he would have taken them from the docks all the way back to the mansion. As luck would have it, today happens to be the day the Herhardts are having a family dinner party, and everyone, including the Duke, will be enjoying themselves into the early hours of the morning. It's unlikely that anyone will be visiting the remote guest house at this time. It's nearly midnight after all. Layla thought so if I quickly run there now and sneak back with my glasses. The Duke thought Layla is coming up with a plan fit for a burglar. Layla thought the moon's bright tonight, so it should be easy to find my way there. Let's go. Let's go find them, or confirm they're there, at least. It'll be all right. They're my glasses anyway. The Duke saw the flowers and said, Layla, Llewellyn, the trap has been set. Now time to wait. The Duke thought Layla Llewellyn understood, without a doubt, what I was trying to convey. She looked a little confused, but that was what her green, spirited eyes were saying as she looked up at me. She's persistent enough to go through all the crow's nests in the entire woods in search of her glasses, so she also won't give up so easily this time. She'll be caught in the trap. The Duke lay on the bed, clenched her glasses, and thought, what am I trying to catch with this bait? I can't seem to find the answer to that question, but I don't feel anxious about it. Layla entered the Duke's room in the dark of night to look for her glasses, and he stared, thinking I'll find out when I catch her. I heard that. I left the front door open on purpose so that it would be easy to get inside, but she came in through the window? Layla went through the front door. While this isn't entirely unexpected, she always knows how to catch me off guard. Layla thought I can't see very well because it's so dark. What are you going to do now that you're inside the guest house? Going through the drawers first, I see. Unfortunately, you won't find much in there. Layla said they're not here. Not here either. Where could they be? She thought, what am I trying to catch with this bait? What am I trying to catch? Her? Layla, no longer a girl. The Duke thought, I think I can now fully accept the reason why I laid this pathetic trap and lay in wait. She said, looking for these? Why is the Duke here? Never mind that, what should I do? How can I explain what I'm doing here? She said, I'm sorry. I didn't think you would be here, Your Grace. I'm very sore, the Duke said, and if I wasn't here, would it be acceptable for you to barge in like some thief? Pardon? Oh, well, she thought that's my glasses. Layla said, I only wanted to find my belongings, namely my glasses that Your Grace hid from me. The Duke thought, even if she acts bold, she's easily frightened. Look at her, trembling like a leaf. Layla thought, where is he going? Don't tell me, he's going to throw them in the river, like he did with my hat? No! Then I'll never be able to find them again. Layla said, no, you can't. Give them back, Your Grace. Please! Those glasses are She thought the moon is bright tonight. Meanwhile, Layla's dupatta fell down, and she was feeling uncomfortable. The Duke said, Layla, don't you think you're making a big deal of me seeing you in your nightgown, when you've seen every inch of my body? Vivid memories of that horrible scene returned to her. Layla said, but that wasn't my fault. I didn't want to see you, I just stumbled across, the Duke said, and I wanted to see you just now. Layla thought, ugh, he's too much. Calm. Just stay calm. This isn't a good position for me to be in. I have to try to appease him. The Duke may accuse me of being a thief right here and now, and he could throw my glasses into the river if he felt like it. All of these things would be so easy for him, but disastrous for me. Layla politely said, I didn't mean it in that way. I apologize, Your Grace. The Duke chuckled and said, why are you acting like a lady all of a sudden? I thought you weren't one. Layla said, that's because, whatever I may be, she smiled and said, Your Grace is a gentleman. The Duke replied, who knows, Layla? I may not be a gentleman, after all. She said, no, Your Grace is definitely a gentleman. The best gentleman in all of Carlsbad. The Duke said, is that so? That's a rather high assessment of me. She smiled and said, assessment? How could I dare to assess you, Your Grace? That would be ridiculous. Everyone who knows you thinks the same. Of course they do. The Duke replied, well, don't you think a little differently? Layla laughed and said, what? No. How could I? Tonight, Layla Llewellyn sold her soul for a pair of glasses. Layla bowed and said, so please give me back my glasses, Your Grace. I worked very hard to buy them. They're very important to me. I'm sorry for coming into the guest house without permission, but I really wanted to find them. The Duke said, Layla, look up. Layla said, I beg your pardon. The Duke wore the glasses and touched her face softly. Layla thought, I think I now know what this emotion is. I desire this woman. I desire Layla Llewellyn, who has grown into a beautiful woman. The Duke touched her lips softly, but I also know the resolution of this emotion. I know that this desire is fleeting and that it will pass. Is there any need to leave a blemish on my life in order to fulfill it? Is Layla Llewellyn worth that much? She thought no, and if that is the case, the answer is clear. The Duke said, you can go. Layla thought, how exactly did I get home? I said my goodbyes, turned around, walked through the woods. All my memories are fuzzy. She washed her face. Are the blue eyes that were as deep and still as the river that swallowed me up, the heat of his hands, she thought, the feeling of his fingers as they brushed my lips, the breath that was caught in my throat as I was being held there, and the pain and shame that washed over me soon after. Why did he? I don't understand. I really don't understand. I don't want to see him ever again. Ever. The Duke thought Layla Llewellyn, who often comes out into the gardens to help Bill Remmer with his work, hasn't been seen for days, since the day she came to find her glasses, that is. That night, while I held Layla there, I thought long and hard about my feelings toward her. After reaching a hollow and foregone conclusion, I let Layla go. The Duke said you can go. He thought after all, that kind of emotion was still within the limits of my control. But for her to run away like that when I let her go, well. Hessen said, Your Grace, the preparations for the hunt are complete. Kyle said, Layla, are you going to get the laundry? Let me help you. Layla said, Thanks. The past 10 days have solely been spent avoiding him. Kyle said, Shall we go for a walk after this, Layla? How about we go to the riverbank with your favorite tree? What do you say? Layla said, A walk? Let's go next time. I have a lot of housework to get through. She thought, Not only have I stayed clear of the river, Kyle said, What's going on? You're acting weird. Don't you think you're spending too much time cooped up at home? Now that you've found your glasses, I thought you'd be out and about, but you're doing the opposite. Layla said, Oh, really? She thought I haven't set foot in the woods either. Kyle shook the cloth and said also, Why aren't you wearing your glasses now that you've found them? I might lose them again, so I thought I'd wear them just when I'm reading. She replied, Really? She thought I only went out to the gardens to help Uncle Bill when the Duke was out, and when he returned I'd flee. As long as I can avoid the Duke, I intend to keep doing this until the end of the summer. A dog woofed. Kyle said, Whoa. They must be out on a hunt. Looks awesome. The Duke saw Layla and Layla saw him wonderfully. When summer ends and fall comes, Layla thought he's due to be engaged to Lady Wine and will leave for the capital. So I just need to get through this season, Kyle said. Layla, are you feeling sad? Do you want to come to my house? Layla replied, Oh, no, it's all right, Kyle. It'll be over by the evening anyway. Let's go inside. Kyle took the doll and said, Let me take this. Layla replied, Yes, Kyle, I'm fine. She thought once he's gone, peace will finally return to the forest of Arvis and bring an end to these recently chaotic days. I guess I should head out into the woods tonight. There will be so many poor birds to bury. The Duke smiled and said, I'm going to go for a stroll, so take the guests back without me. Hessen said, Understood, Your Grace. The Duke shot a pigeon with his gun and thought the moment when you hit the target you've been aiming for is quite an exhilarating feeling. As always, the hunt was pleasant. But this feeling of dissatisfaction that lingers must be because of the bird that keeps desperately flying away from me. There seemed to be more victims of the hunt than usual today. She thought, Every few steps I take, I see another dead bird. I hate this. As Layla walked further, she found dead birds at every step and dug graves with a shovel to bury them. She thought, I hate Duke Herhardt for being so heartless, but something feels off. I've buried birds every year, but I've never had to bury them in such numbers as I had to today. This doesn't bode well. She thought, I'll just bury that one then go home. The Duke said, Keep going, Layla Llewellyn. Carry on with your task. The Duke sat in stone and said, Hello, Layla. Layla thought, the Duke. Could it be, he did this on purpose because he knew I would come to bury the birds? That red thread, it's the same thread I tied on the plover chicks that hatched on the Shelter River bank last year. After spending the winter far south, the birds returned home, only to die, for the petty amusement of that man. The Duke said, Carry on with your task. Did you tie that thread? She replied, Yes. The Duke said, Why? Layla said, I wanted to be able to recognize the migratory birds that returned here, although this isn't the kind of homecoming I had in mind. The Duke said, You look scornful, but I don't see a problem. All I have done is hunt my birds on my estate, on my hunting grounds. Layla said, But the birds don't know that, Your Grace. To them, this is just a forest. It's the place where they were born and raised, and the place they want to come back to after they've traveled far and wide. Must I consider the feelings of the birds? Layla said, No, not exactly, But is it really necessary to hunt them in such a violent manner? I wonder if the Duke knows that it took more courage to say these words than when I boarded that train as a child, with only an address on a piece of paper. The Duke said, well, Layla, you seem to know a lot about how birds feel. What on earth do you think hunting is? You want them to be hunted kindly? Layla replied, oh, I'm sorry. I was being presumptuous. Please forgive me. The Duke said, why do you like birds so much? Layla said, I doubt it would be very interesting to your grace. She bowed and said, I'm done, so I'll take my leave now, your grace. Layla went away. The Duke said, what a shame, Layla. It looks like you have some unfinished work to do. Layla said, please. I'd rather you told me directly if I've wronged you in any way. The Duke took the gun and said, wronged me? The Duke said, yes, please tell me what I've done wrong to deserve such a terrible punishment. The Duke said, I've never punished you. I am merely doing my work, and you are doing yours, Layla. Wronged me? Well, perhaps. The Duke said, wronged me? Well, perhaps. Because they've always been there. Growing up, I had to wander from place to place, and always close by, even those that left when the seasons changed would return if you waited for them. There was never a season without birds of some kind, or a place without them. I liked the idea that the most beautiful and freest beings in the world were always by my side. Layla said, although I'm sure that doesn't mean anything to your grace. She cried and said, are you going to hunt like this again? The Duke replied, if need be. The Duke said, Layla, everything should be where it belongs, with no hiding or running away. She said, what do you mean by that? The Duke said, stay in your place. Layla said, and what exactly is this place that I should be staying in, your grace? The Duke said, have a good think. Layla said, your grace? The Duke said, who knows? He thought, if you find the answer, perhaps I will hunt more kindly from now on. Layla thought, and what exactly is this place that I should be staying in, your grace? There was nothing Matthias wanted in particular from Layla Llewellyn, but Layla should know her place, where she belonged. She should stay an orphan who lives in the forest, a curious student, then a teacher once she graduates school, right where she belongs, as always, just as how his world was ordered. He was born in a world ruled by a perfect order, and soon enough, he became its master. Within that order, everything was simple and clear. One must live to faithfully fulfill the roles and expectations that have been given to them. To him, this wasn't a difficult task, and to an extent, it was a somewhat boring one. To his grandmother and mother, he was an heir to be proud of. To the servants, a generous master. On the battlefield, a brilliant soldier. To the board of directors, a competent businessman. Matthias was always something to someone, and he was willing to fulfill the duties of the roles given to him. And those who came face to face with him were no different. They acted in a manner befitting their roles, and within those confined boundaries, only restrained emotions were exchanged. This was the world that Matthias had seen, heard, and learned from. But what was he to the lowly orphan who lived in his woods? Matthias wasn't anything. There was no room in the Duke's life for anything superfluous to squeeze its way in. For the first time in his life, Matthias played no role. It was a strange feeling, not being anything for someone, but he did not mind how it felt. If anything, the out-of-bounds emotion shown by that woman entertained him, like the thrill he felt the moment he shot down a bird in flight with a single gunshot. Above all, there were those tears. He liked to see Layla cry. The Duke thought to himself that she was beautiful when she cried, so much so that he wanted to make her cry again. Wine, Duke Herhardt. The Duke said, my lady. Wine asked, did you enjoy your stroll? I've been waiting for you. I heard the hunt today went swimmingly. It seems everyone is still reeling from the excitement. It's all anyone has talked about since they returned. Of course, it will make things difficult for me if hunting is the only topic of conversation tonight. The Duke said you should come with us next time. Wine said, thank you for the offer, but I must decline. The sight of blood may make me faint in front of everyone. More importantly, I was thinking of throwing a party of my own in Arvis soon, as a rehearsal of sorts. Your mother suggested I try my hand now, as I will be the one hosting our guests after we are married. The Duke said she did? Wyan said yes, she is so considerate and kind. Wyan said since this is the first party I will be hosting, I would like to invite everyone on my list, and would that be all right with you, Your Grace? The Duke said as you wish, my lady. When morning came again, after the short summer night, Matthias thought to himself that it wouldn't be so bad to carry out a gentler hunt next time. Layla was in the rose garden. She was back where she belonged, helping the gardener with his work. The Duke said there. You see? It's easy, Layla. Layla said I brought you the flowers, my lady. Wyan said thank you, Layla. Please leave them there. Layla said unless there's more for me to do, I'll take my leave. Wyan said Layla, could you also bring me some red roses? One bouquet will do. Layla said yes, my lady. Omen said you know that girl, she acts very polite, but doesn't her demeanor seem oddly arrogant somehow? Another Omen said I agree. Her gaze is that of someone who doesn't know her place. I dislike her. Wyan said don't be so hard on her. Layla is a poor little thing. Of course, I've always known that Layla had such shortcomings, but let us be kind. Mona said you're far too generous with your servants. You'd better educate the likes of her before you become the mistress of Arvis. That's right. Wyan thought it's not unreasonable of them to have this reaction. Having observed Layla for a while now, my opinion of her is no different to theirs. Her docile attitude stems from complete indifference. Even the daughters of the aristocracy are eager to befriend me, but Layla has never been excited nor happy when I have allowed her the privilege of my presence. Far from trying to impress, she seems only to be silently enduring her situation. The fact that none other than Layla, an orphan, evokes these feelings within me. Layla said, my lady, I brought the roses you asked for. Will this be enough for you? Wyan said yes, that will do, Layla. Wyan thought today, I plan on giving Layla another small gift. I want to give an unforgettable present to that poor orphan child, who is as proud as a princess, yet cannot possibly remain indifferent to a gold coin. Layla said, my lady, this is, Wyan said it's an invitation, Layla. Mona, are taking what? You're inviting her, Wyan? Wyan said, why are you giving me this? Consider it my graduation gift to you. Wyan said it will be a fond memory for you to look back on. Both Dowager Herhardt and Lady Herhardt have already given me their permission. Layla said, but Wyan smiled and said it would mean the world if you came, Layla. I trust you won't turn me down, Mona said. Ugh. I'm just so angry. Why must all those aristocrats be so mean? Bill said, I see the word has gotten out about Layla being invited to the party. Mona replied, of course it has. People are even going around saying that Lady Wyan treats Layla like a poor puppy. Bill said, what? A puppy? Omen said, and no wonder. Ever since they were children, Lady Wyan would always call for Layla whenever she was bored. And as if that wasn't bad enough, she's gone and invited Layla to a party full of noble ladies. From Lady Wyan's perspective, she's being kind, but how intimidated must Layla feel? Bill said Layla isn't the kind of girl to be intimidated by something like that. All she needs to do is show her face for a bit. Mona said, how can you be so insensitive? After all these years, you should know better how to raise a daughter by now. Bill said, daughter, my foot. I'm still thinking about where best to send her, and I just haven't made a decision yet. Mona said, my goodness. That dead thinking of yours. Thinking? Mona shouts, she'll be thinking when Layla gets married, and thinking when she hands you a grandson. You'll still be thinking in your grave. Bill said, Lord, there you go again. I've already told you. Come now. Enough of this thinking nonsense, and let's go buy Layla a pretty dress. Bill said, a dress? Mona said, yes, it'll be a surprise. Layla is a woman after all. Just think how happy she'd be. Bill said, I supposed it's a good idea, but you know very well that Layla would never want to feel indebted to me. No doubt she'll refuse if I offer to buy her a dress. Mona said, of course. So that's where I come in. You know you're still keeping all your money in that old bag? I told you to take it to the bank. Bill gave the bag and said this cottage in Arvis is safer than any bank. By the way, when Layla finds out about this, she's going to have a fit. Bill said, don't you worry about that. I'll make sure she won't find out until the day of the party. Is this enough for a dress? Mona said a little more. She'll need more than just a dress for a party like this. Bill took the money and said, well, fine. While we're at it, might as well buy everything she'll need. Mona said, well, this is unlike you. In a generous mood, are we? Good. Since it's come to this, let's make sure Layla's beauty takes those noble ladies down a peg or two. At that time Layla came and said, I'm home. Nice to see you, Mona. Seeing Layla, Bill put the bag under him and Mona buried the money under him. Bill smiled and said, I brought some snacks, Layla, even your favorite strawberry cake and cookies. Then I'll get changed and be right back. Let's have them together. Mona said, no, that's quite all right. Mona replied, it's a shame, but I must get going now. See you soon, Layla? Layla said, oh, of course. Take C. Layla thought she must be in a hurry. Bill said, Layla? Layla replied, yes. Bill said, what are you going to do about that invitation? Layla said, you mean the party? I'll go show my face then come back straight away. Dr. Edmund's family were also invited, so I'll go with Kyle. She thought finally some good news for Bill. Aha! So that parasite is making himself useful at last. Bill said, then is there anything you need, Layla? Like a dress, for instance? Bill said, a dress? Of course I don't need a dress, Uncle Bill. I'm only going to be popping in. Bill shouts and said, that can't be right. You should be dressed properly for an occasion like this. Were you planning on showing up in your school uniform to a gathering full of noble ladies? Layla laughed and said, that's not a bad idea. Bill thinks I understand that she's trying her hardest to not be a burden, to not owe anyone anything. I know it full well, and yet, I end up being blunt because I don't know how to console her. Mona was right about everything. Layla said, I'm all right, Uncle Bill. Bill said, I really am? Bill thought, you poor dear thing, I should be consoling you, not the other way around. She slept and thought someone pulled the sheet over him. She woke and said, I'm in my room. I had a nightmare. In my nightmares I go back to my childhood when I was always moving from one relative's house to another. Back to when I was bullied, beaten, and yet still begged them not to abandon me. Back then, the only things I could do to keep myself from being abandoned were tirelessly helping with housework, eating less, and staying as quiet as a statue, tucked away in the corner of a room. But no matter how hard I tried, when the time came for me to head to the next relative's house, instead of crying in sorrow, I practiced smiling. The more I wanted to cry, the brighter I smiled, because no one in the world would ever like a crying orphan. After being kicked out over and over again, I gradually became better at smiling. But somehow, on the day I finally crossed the border into Berg, I just couldn't manage to smile. Because I knew that the address I held in my hand was my last hope. And that if I were to be abandoned once more, I would have no choice but to live in an orphanage. So, on that day, I smiled as best I could, and I'll never forget the moment I looked into Uncle Bill's eyes, which were full of kindness and compassion. Bill said, you can use this room for the time being. The first step I took over the threshold of the room, and the day I finally found my family, and a home I wanted to return to again, I will never be able to forget those things as long as I live. So everything is all right. The party on the Duke's estate is tonight. I'd be lying if I said it doesn't bother me, but I don't want to dwell on it or let it weigh on my mind. All I need to do is show up, linger quietly, then leave. It's as simple as that. Lady Wine could never understand that I'll gladly do everything I can. Bill said, you're up early, Layla. Bill thinks, to protect the life I've made here. Layla said, good morning, Uncle Bill. Did you sleep well? Layla thought, Uncle Bill, and this cozy little cottage. Hessen said it has all been arranged as you instructed, Your Grace. I received word that they left about an hour ago, so they should have been delivered by now. Duke said, I see. Good work. Duke thinks the news that Wine had invited Layla Llewellyn to this party reached me through my mother. My mother praised Wine for being a good-natured young lady and displaying such charity and kindness, or something along those lines. It was a little absurd, but I didn't object to it, as it would turn into quite a pleasant spectacle to behold. If Layla shows up to tonight's party in a shabby dress, Wyan plans to offer up all the sympathy and pity she can muster, while Layla just stands there and takes it all. Crushing the pride of an irksome child can be enjoyable, after all. But that is why I didn't want to give Claudine the satisfaction, even though I knew full well what it is that she wanted. That pleasure must be mine and mine alone. I'm no good at sharing what is mine with others. Hessen said, Your Grace, what would you like to do with those things? Duke thinks the gifts, purchased by the chef on behalf of Bill Remmer, had been brought here by Hessen, and the replacements for those items were turned back into gifts from Bill Remmer and delivered to the cottage. There's no point in keeping those things when they are of no use. Duke said, Discard them? Layla said, Uncle Bill. Just how much money did you spend? Bill thinks, let me think. How much money did I give Mona that day? I figured she'd put some care and thought into this, but I didn't expect it to be to this extent. Even I can see that these are all expensive items, what with the dress, shoes, and gloves, and considering the shop staff delivered them in person, a friendly delivery service, it must have cost a lot of money. And just look at that necklace. AP, did that woman take money for the necklace too? No, never mind. Whatever it all cost, it's money well spent, as long as Layla can go enjoy the party without feeling humiliated. Bill said, Well, I took care of it, so don't you worry about it. A kid like you shouldn't fret about such things. Layla said, Uncle Bill. This is too much. Bill said, Why? You don't like it? Everything looks pretty good to me, but Layla said, Of course I like them. It's just that, this is all for one event. I can't let you spend a fortune on a party where I'm only going to be showing my face for a little while. Layla said, Let's return these items. Layla thinks, what? All that effort that went into getting these gifts, and now she wants to return everything? Bill shouts, Layla, if you don't go to the party in these, I'll never see you again. Layla said, What? Bill said, You always hate being indebted to anyone. I understand how you feel, Layla, but you shouldn't draw these lines in the sand. Especially between us. These things look good, but they're nothing but cheap knockoffs. I'd give you the best things in the world if I could, but you know I'm in no position to do that. Well, fine. If you can't accept these, then leave it. I'll just have to use them as kindling. Layla said, Uncle Bill. Bill said, And Layla, I'll never see you again. Got that? Bill thinks my emotions got the better of me and I said some horrible things. I shouldn't have said I'd never see her again. No lends the **** this temper of mine. Kyle said, Uncle Bill. Bill thinks Kyle? Kyle said, Kyle? Bill saw and thought, well, I always thought of that parasite as just a kid, but now that he's all dressed up, he looks like a fine young gentleman. Kyle said, Why are you outside? How's Layla? Bill said, I'm not sure. Kyle said, Huh? Isn't she in? But the party is starting soon. Bill said, No, it's not that. Layla, ready in a new dress, came to Bill and Kyle. Bill saw her wonderfully, grabbed Kyle's shoulder, and said, Always be on your guard, Kyle Edmund. Tonight you're going to be acting in my stead. That means you must protect Layla at all costs, you understand? Kyle said, Of course. I'll protect her no matter what. Bill said, All right. I'll trust you. Kyle said, Thank you, Uncle Bill. Layla said, Kyle, don't you think I look strange? I don't think these types of clothes suit me. Kyle said, No, you look pretty, Layla. I mean it. Now then, let us be on our way, Miss Layla Llewellyn. Layla said, Come, don't do that, Kyle. You're being weird. Kyle smiled and said, I know, but try to get used to it. Today is a special day. Kyle thinks think of me as Mr. Edmund, your escort to the party, rather than as your friend. Layla said, All right, I'll try my best. Layla said, Uncle Bill, I'll be back soon. Bill said, Please you get going now. Bill thinks I hope your feelings don't get hurt tonight, and hope you have a good time, Layla. Layla said, Are you sure? I don't look strange. Kyle replied, Not at all. There's no need for you to be so nervous. Tonight, all you need to do is trust your escort. Layla said, Okay. Duke saw Layla, and thinks Layla's appearance served as proof that Hessen was an impeccable butler. Even without much adornment, and with the dress draped awkwardly on her, Layla was still undeniably beautiful, as was the emerald necklace that hung on her long, pale neck. Matthias had seen it in a shop window on the way to an appointment. Its clear green color, reminiscent of a forest in summer, had made an impression on him. On the drive back to the estate, he ordered Hessen to buy the necklace while thinking of those eyes that sparkled like emeralds. Man said, "It's been far too long, Duke Herhardt. How have you been?" Duke thinks even as he greets familiar faces, all his senses are focused on one point. Tonight, that oblivious doctor's son will proudly escort Layla, as if she belongs to him, blind to the fact that she is wrapped around my finger. Wine said her friend, "This is my friend, Layla." Layla said, "Lovely to meet you. My name is Layla Llewellyn." Girl said, "So you're the one who was with Lady Wine earlier? It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance." Another said, "It's the first time I'm hearing your name." Layla was taken in and raised by the gardener who works at the manor in Arvis. Wine said Duke Herhardt and the two ladies of the house allowed for Layla to be raised on the estate after she was orphaned, and that's how I came to know her. Girl said, "Wait, Wine, did you just say, an orphan?" Wine said, "Don't worry. Layla may have grown up under unfortunate circumstances, but she's a diligent and upright young woman. She's about to finish school and is preparing to become a teacher. Isn't that wonderful?" Girl said, "Miss Llewellyn is wonderful indeed, but your warmth and compassion for everyone is what's truly remarkable." Another girl smiled and said, "That must be why the Herhardts are so fond of you. I hear you're to be engaged soon, Wine, congratulations." Wine said, "I'm a little embarrassed to be receiving congratulations when it hasn't been officially announced yet." She thinks so, don't be. It's common knowledge, after all. She said, "Oh my. Well, here comes the Duke. He must want to spend time with you, Lady Wine." Wine said, "You came at a great time, Duke Herhardt. These are my friends." Better bowed and said, "It's an honor to meet you, Your Grace." Wine said, "And this is Gries from Marquis Weiss's family? And these are," she thinks, please just let him pass me by. "And this is Layla." Wine said, "We went to the cafe together once. Do you recognize her?" "I almost didn't because she looks so different." Layla said, "Good evening, Your Grace." Wine thinks, how strange. No matter how much I insulted her, she was always as calm as still water, but now she's acting so flustered and even blushing in front of the Duke. Wine reminded her mom, talk, either way, no good can come of having a girl like that close to Matthias. Perhaps mother's fears are coming true. In fact, on the day everyone went hunting in the forest, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. That day, Duke Herhardt insisted on taking a solitary walk in the woods, and sent his party back ahead of him, and only returned to the manor late in the evening as the sun was setting. Normally, it wouldn't have seemed unusual, but that day, something felt off. Was Duke Herhardt truly walking that whole time? Even into the evening? And as for Layla Llewellyn, how did she manage to appear in such an outfit when her circumstances are clearly apparent? And above all, that necklace, crafted with delicate emeralds, diamonds, and pearls, it's far too intricate and beautiful to be a fake. If anyone could afford to give such a necklace to Layla, it would be, Kyle said, excuse me. I'm sorry to interrupt, but may I excuse my partner? Kyle grabbed her hand and said, my friends would also very much like to be introduced to Layla. Wine thinks the doctor's son? Wine thinks so. The person who turned Layla Llewellyn into a princess tonight wasn't the Duke, but Kyle Edmund? Wine said, of course. We shouldn't have Layla just ourselves when she came with a partner. Kyle said, thank you for your understanding. Please excuse us. Wine thinks no, that doesn't make sense. He may be from a wealthy family, but he's nothing but a doctor's son. Wine said, Layla? Layla replied, yes, my lady. Wine said, you look very pretty today, especially that necklace. Layla replied, thank you. Wine said, that necklace is very becoming on Layla. Don't you think, Duke Herhardt? Duke said, yes, indeed. Layla said, thanks, Kyle. Thank you so much. Kyle said, why were you just standing there and taking it? She replied, huh? Kyle said, they were treating you as if you were a spectacle and insulting you. The Layla Llewellyn I know is proud and clever. Why did you just grin and bear it like a fool? Layla said, oh, that? What does it matter? They're not wrong, anyway. I am an orphan, I am indebted to Uncle Bill, and I will become a teacher. Kyle said Layla. Layla replied, Don't worry, Kyle. Those words don't bother me at all. You're a mystery sometimes. Layla said people are complex beings by nature, Mr. Edmund. Kyle said you and that silver tongue of yours? Layla said you know Kyle, you can go now. And where would I be going to? You have a lot of people to go see. It looked like your mother was also waiting for you. Kyle said Layla, I'm attending this party as your partner tonight. So I'm going to stay by your side. That's what I want to do. Kyle said why aren't you saying anything? Layla replied I just don't know. Kyle said what's going on? Are you embarrassed? You're blushing. Layla said what? No way. Kyle replied got you. Layla said you little. Kyle's mom said Kyle. What on earth are you doing here? Kyle said Mom. His mom said I've been looking for you everywhere. Do you have any idea how important today is? Come quickly. There are lots of people waiting to meet you. Kyle said you mean waiting to meet father, not me. Kyle's mom said Kyle Edmund, do you think this is all a joke? The Dowager Herhardt is looking for you. Kyle said the Dowager? Kyle's mom said yes. You're not going to keep her waiting, are you? Layla said do as your mother says, Kyle. Kyle said but then you'll. Layla said I'll be waiting just here. Kyle's mom said thank you for understanding, Layla. Kyle said Layla. I'll be right back, so wait here, alright? Layla thinks what lovely music. My purpose here has now come to an end. All that's left is to stay here and wait quietly for Kyle. Layla thinks the bill talk. These things look good, but they're nothing but cheap knockoffs. I'd give you the best things in the world if I could, but you know I'm in no position to do that. Even though that's what Uncle Bill said, I still feel they're far too beautiful for someone like me. A dress that's as soft as if it were made of clouds, shoes adorned with delicate embroidery, and this necklace. How can fake jewels look so beautiful? Maybe that's why Lady Claudine said what she did? You look very pretty today, Wine said, especially that necklace. Wine thinks perhaps it wasn't a compliment, but scorn or pity, delivered in a tasteful manner. It doesn't bother me what she thinks. These are from Uncle Bill, and that's all that matters to me. Layla sees and thinks it's the Duke and Lady Wine. Wine said the night breeze is so refreshing. I like summer because the nights are so beautiful. What about you, Duke Herhardt? Duke said I'm not particularly fond of summer, my lady. Wine said that's surprising. I always thought you liked it. Come to think of it, you do seem to be rather indifferent. And please, I don't mean that as a criticism. In truth, I like that about you. Your composure and the way you are unaffected by silly little things seems noble and elegant. Duke said I'm glad to hear it. Wine said kiss me. As much as I am fond of your indifference, we need at least a hint of passion between us, don't you think? Duke said. A hint of passion. You say, Wine replied you make a good point. Duke thinking of Layla and kissed Wine. Layla sees him and thinks this time the Duke touched her lips. Duke said shall we go, my lady? Wine said I'm certain, Duke Herhardt. Layla thinks I'm certain that we will make a good couple. Blood. And on the shoes that Uncle Bill bought me. I want to go home now, she thinks. Kyle said Layla. I'll be right back, so wait here, alright? What should I do? I promised Kyle I'd wait for him, so I should go back, but I really don't think I can. I'll wait in the garden for a little while, and go back in a bit to meet Kyle. It's probably fine for me to sit here, right? I'm here tonight as a guest, acted Addie, just can't understand it, no matter how much I try. How could they do something like that when it's so obvious that someone else is so close by? They probably didn't think anything of it. To them, servants are nothing more than furniture after all. Wait a minute, why on earth would he do something like that? How vulgar! Kyle's mother said how very gracious of you. You are too kind, Your Grace. Duke's grandmother said it's nothing compared to the dedication that Dr. Edmund has shown as our family physician. As you very well know, the House of Arndt is a prestigious one. Your families are well matched, so if you continue to build a close relationship, it will surely benefit you both. Kyle's mother thinks Baron Arndt has a daughter who happens to be the same age as Kyle, and will no doubt be contemplating marriage soon. A golden opportunity has practically fallen into our laps, yet my only son is still utterly preoccupied with that orphan, Layla. It can't be helped. I must guide him as his mother. Kyle's mother said, Your Grace, if it isn't too much trouble, may we be introduced to each other right away? Man said, Honey. Woman said, Of course, Mrs. Edmund. They are also attending tonight's party, so it wouldn't hurt to make introductions while you are both here. Man said, ringing the bell, Please bring Baroness Arndt here. A voice said, Yes, Your Grace. Duke thinks it looks like grandmother is playing the matchmaker. Although they are not titled, the Edmonds are much wealthier than the House of Arndt, and they also are not lacking in reputation, so if the two families were to foster a close relationship, it will likely lead to a reasonable marriage proposal between them, despite the difference in status. Kyle said, Mom, you go make introductions. I'm going. Kyle's mom said, This is all for you, Kyle. It would be rude of you to leave now. Kyle said, Huh? Kyle's mother said, Just stay and be quiet. A mother with endless affection and expectations for her son, and a son who, despite wanting to run off, does not know how to disappoint his mother. Well, if that is the case, it's all too clear how the boy's first love will end. Kyle Edmund will never be able to let go of his role as a well-mannered and dutiful son, and between that ambitious mother and her obedient son, step Layla Llewellyn will be cast aside, Duke thinking, and ultimately, be left here in my forest, right where she belongs. Duke saw Layla sleeping on the bench. He came near and sat on the ground, then pulled off her shoes. Layla saw him and said, Your Grace? Layla thought she had been dreaming for a moment. Her shoes. But it wasn't a dream. Duke asked, Would you like them back? Layla said, Yes, please. Duke said, Then cry, Layla. Layla thought, What? First he takes my belongings and now he wants me to cry. Does he think it's fun to torment me like this all the time? If only Kyle would come back now, Duke said. Kyle Edmund. That is who you're waiting for, is it not? Layla said. You're wrong, Your Grace. Kyle is someone who keeps his promises. Duke asked. Is that so? You seem highly confident of that. Layla said. I know what Kyle is like, far better than you do, Your Grace. Duke came closer and said, You shouldn't be so certain, Layla. Layla said, I really don't understand. Duke asked. About what? Layla said. Why does Your Grace despise me so much? Duke said. Let's see, the reason I despise you. Then cleaned her shoes and said, Despising you makes me feel good. It amuses me to watch you cry, and I enjoy seeing you beg. Layla said. How could you say such a thing? Duke said. Layla, I am only answering your question. Layla said. But you don't act like this, with anyone but me. Duke said. That's right. Layla asked. So why is it only me? Duke said. Because it's you. Because you are Layla, and because you are nothing. Layla said. The relatives who were so quick to cast me out with harsh words, or my drunk uncle who would insult and beat me every day, none of them have ever crushed my heart as cruelly as the Duke has. Layla said. I'm sorry, Your Grace. I'm sorry that a nothing like me dared to live on your estate. Layla thought, if this was how things were going to be, it would have been better if you hadn't allowed me to stay here. Duke said. That would have been heartless, don't you think? Layla said. You're being heartless enough now. Duke asked. What do you intend to do with me from now on? Will you drive me away? No, there is no need to worry about that. You are already serving your purpose. But you said I am nothing. That is your purpose, Duke said. Enough with the apologies. Kyle Edmund, the one you are waiting for, he will not be coming. So Layla, cry, or better yet beg. Duke thought, have a drink, Matthias. Layla cried. She cried prettily, that I gladly returned her shoes. By the time I had left the garden and reached the end of the path, Layla was still standing there with tears streaming down her face. They were tears caused by me, and they belonged entirely to me. Amusingly enough, those tears washed away the wretched feeling I had when I saw Layla earlier, as well as the indescribable feeling I got when I was looking at her while kissing wine. Today, Layla realized the clear line that separates herself and the boy, as well as the significance of his status, and the reason he never came back to her. Layla said, "Please, could you tell Kyle that I went home first?" Kellen said, "Your Grace, what can I do for you?" Duke said, "Bring Count Klein to the second-floor terrace." Kellen said, "Understood, Your Grace." Duke thought the Count would not be coming because he went home early. Asking for him was merely an excuse to buy time. As the servant went searching for the Count who had already left the party, Layla was swiftly leaving the garden, briskly walking as she always does. As a woman who fiercely protects her own, yet has no attachments to what doesn't belong to her, Layla didn't look back once. It was as if there wasn't a single reason for her to stay at the party. Kellen said, "My apologies, Your Grace. It seems Baron Klein has already retired for the evening," Duke said. "I see," Duke thought. Kyle Ettman, even if the doctor's son, upon hearing Layla's message, were to escape from his mother's clutches and go looking for her, nothing would come of it now. Layla has already left, and this tedious midsummer night's party would simply go on. Duke said, "Layla," Layla said, "Uncle Bill, you really need to get going now. You'll miss the train at this rate." Bill said, "Layla, are you sure you'll be all right? You'll be all alone for the next few days." Layla said, "I'll be fine. It's only 3 days. Not only that, it's for your brother's funeral. You have to go." Bill said, "We haven't been in touch for decades. I doubt my absence would be much of an issue now." Layla said, "I'll be fine, Uncle Bill." "Don't worry," Bill said. "All right then. By the way, Layla, on the night of the party," Bill continued, "did something happen between you and Kyle?" Layla said, "Between me and Kyle? No, nothing happened," Bill said. "I'm glad to hear that, but it's strange that I haven't seen much of him lately." Layla said, "Oh, I see. We're both busy, that's all. Kyle also has to study for his college entrance exams." Bill said, "Ah, of course, that must be it. You two are so close, after all. I was worrying over nothing. If that's the case, Layla, when you get scared while I'm away, you can have Kyle over in my stead." Bill thought, No, I can't trust him either." Bill said, "You haven't forgotten what I said, have you, Layla? Always make sure to lock the doors, and lock the windows, even if it's hot. My hunting gun is hanging in my room, so," Layla said, "so sleep with it next to my bed. And if any bad guys appear, shoot them. I'll make sure to eat 3 square meals a day, and study hard while you're away." Layla said, "Happy?" Bill said, "And one more thing. If Kyle comes over, you must make him leave before nightfall." Layla thought, if he insists on staying, whack him with a shovel to kick him out. "Do you understand?" Layla said. "What? Do I really have to go that far?" Bill said. "From what I saw that day, Kyle is a full-grown man now. You should have seen the look in his eyes. Come to think of it, I should be most worried about him." Layla laughed and said, "Honestly, Uncle Bill, what are you even talking about?" Bill laughed and replied, "Honestly, Uncle Bill, what are you even talking about?" Bill said, "All right, you should go back now. I've asked Mona to look out for you while I'm gone, so if you need anything, just let her know." Layla said, "Yes, Uncle Bill. Have a safe trip." Bill said, "I'll see you later." Layla thought, I tried to act all grown up in front of Uncle Bill and told him everything was fine, but somehow, I have a feeling, it's going to be a long 3 days. Layla sent a letter to Kyle. "I'm sorry, Kyle. I think it'd be best if you don't come to the cottage today. Something's come up and Uncle Bill had to go back to his hometown for a few days, and I said I'd go to the library with a few school friends. I'll be back after dinner, so don't wait for me." Kyle said, "I'll see you later. Bye. I've been getting the same message for the past few days." Kyle thought, she has an appointment. She's going into town. She's going to help out in the garden, and today, it's the library. I wasn't sure at first, but now I'm certain. Layla's avoiding me. Layla's avoiding me. I would have done the same in her shoes. I made all that fuss about me being her partner, and protecting her, then left her all by herself." Kyle's mother said, "My word! What's that thumping sound? What on earth is that boy up to? Kyle thought, I can't stand how pathetic I am. I should have stormed out of there sooner. Why didn't I? Coward. Kyle slowly said to Layla. I keep having this ominous feeling that I'll lose Layla forever, and I'll be helpless to do anything about it, like I am now. I have to take things into my own hands. I need to talk to Layla face to face. Kyle took a cycle and thought. Layla, she said. Kyle thought. I'm so sorry. It was my fault. Layla said. Don't. I'm the one who lied, so why are you apologizing? Kyle said. No, it's all my fault. I completely understand why you're acting like this. I asked you to wait for me and promised I'd be back soon, but I didn't keep my word. I'm sorry, Layla. It won't happen again. Layla said. Kyle, I'm not angry or upset with you for what happened that night. I'm serious. Kyle said. Then why? Why do you keep avoiding me? Layla thought, I truly wasn't angry with Kyle. It was just that, on that day, I was reminded of something I had long forgotten. That Kyle and I belonged to completely different worlds. No, perhaps I've always known it better than anyone else, but chose to deliberately ignore it. Because I like you. Layla said. Kyle Edmund. Kyle said. That's my name. And yours? Layla thought, you were the first to reach out to me during my unhappy childhood. I'm Layla. Layla Llewellyn. Layla Llewellyn. Nice to meet you, Layla. You were the first person to approach me with sincerity. Layla thought about her past. These are the chicks I was telling you about. Kyle said. Wow. They're tiny. That's amazing. Are there other nests? Yes. Do you want to see? Not with pity or disdain, and without seeing my circumstances as a flaw. The kindness and memories I shared with you are as precious to me as the fortune of meeting Uncle Bill. Layla said. Uncle Bill. I brought Kyle with me. Kyle said. Hello? Bill said. You. Kyle said. If it's not too much trouble, may I join you for dinner, Uncle Bill? It won't be too much trouble. Come on in. Layla thought, why must a child grow to be an adult? As I walked home, reflecting on that clear sadness, I made up my mind. I decided that I should let go of my dear friend, for his sake. You know, Kyle, Layla said, I think it's time we started to. Kyle said, What? What do you mean? Kyle asked. Did you see it that night? Layla said. Yes. This is the way things should be, Kyle. It's the only way we can stay good friends for a long time to come. Kyle said. What are you talking about? We have to grow distant to remain good friends. Layla, you do realize you're talking nonsense, don't you? Layla said. No, I truly mean it. I don't want to lose you. Kyle said. And who says I want to lose you too? I feel the same way. Why would we, of all people, grow apart? It's impossible. There's just no way, Layla. Kyle said. I'll never lose you. And I'll never let us grow apart over something like this. Layla thought, Kyle, the time has come for us to grow up. Layla said. Stay for lunch, Kyle. I'll have it ready in a moment. Riette, reading the newspaper, thinks just how many lives does that bird think it has. It's not afraid of climbing all over the Duke, who is still impeccably dressed in his suit despite the heat. The audacity. And Matthias, of all people, is letting it live. And look at his expression. What a strange scene. Riette whispers in his ears, Wine, have you thought about wearing a yellow dress to your engagement party? I'm sure Duke Herhardt would adore you like he does that bird. Wine replies, No, I dislike yellow. It's a vulgar color. Riette smiles and says, Is that so? Well, perhaps a yellow dress may not be a suitable choice for a lady who is about to become the esteemed flower of high society. Besides, our Wine will soon become the lady who beat the princess. Wine says this again, Riette? Riette says, What does it matter? That's what everyone is saying. I've been wondering about that, Wine. How does it truly feel to have beaten the princess to become the lady of the house of Herhardt? Wine pricks Riette's hand with a noodle, and Riette says, Ouch, and thinks she really stabbed me. Wine says, Enough with the tasteless jokes, Riette. Riet smiles and says, all right. Wine says, by the way, Matthias, when will you be discharged from the military? Riet says, could you not solely focus on the family's businesses after you're engaged? The Duke says, well, it wouldn't be amiss to stay in the Royal Guard for another year or two. Riet says, that's true. It is a tradition of the House of Herhardt, after all. And after his discharge, Duke Matthias von Herhardt will undoubtedly become a more honorable duke than any of his predecessors. Gosh, to think your engagement is just around the corner. It feels strange to think about. The Duke says, feel free to relax here as long as you need. Riet says, and where are you going, Matthias? The Duke says, the guest house. I have work to do. The Duke thinks I decided to head to the guest house on a whim. I intended to work there until dinner. Or at least, I had planned to until I left the mansion. But when I suddenly stopped and looked around, I found myself standing on the path to the gardener's cottage. I dislike it when my emotions are out of control. I want everything in my world to remain in its proper place, and my emotions are no exception. But at some point, I found myself consumed by thoughts of that woman. My gaze followed only her. Whenever all my senses became fixated on her, and an uncontrollable heat began to build deep within me, there were moments when my willpower failed to cut off the base impulses that were creeping in. Each time I became aware of myself being swayed by such trivial emotions, the sense of discomfort only grew stronger. Such things should not be a priority in life, and the same applied to Layla Llewellyn. Perhaps that is why I feel the need to confirm it, to see what lies at the end of this emotion. Layla, crying, says help. Is anybody there? Layla grabs on as she hangs from a tree branch and begins to think, oh no. If I apply any more force, the branch will snap. Stay calm. Stay calm. Just a little more. If I could just reach over there, please. Oh no, I'll break my legs if I fall from here. Of all times for this to happen, it had to be when Uncle Bill isn't home. A few minutes ago, she thinks, having seen Kyle off after our lunch, I was on my way back home when I heard chirping, and following the sound, I found a baby bird on the ground, crying pitifully. I'm so tweet-sod. It was a baby bird that had recently hatched from a nest in the large tree in the backyard. Layla grabs the baby bird and thinks, did you fall from your nest? Layla says, oh dear. You must have fallen from quite a height, but luckily you don't seem too hurt. It's all right. I'll get you back home. Layla climbs the tree and sets the baby bird in the nest, and she thinks all I had to do was gently return the baby bird to its nest. Layla says bye-bye, grow up strong, and be careful from now on. And carefully climbed down myself, when I was lucky enough to grab a branch as I fell, but it'll only be a matter of time until I fall again. Besides, I don't know how much longer this branch will hold up. Maybe Kyle will be able to hear me, if he hasn't gone far. Layla begins to weep and says, Kyle, please come and help me. Kyle. Layla shouts, Kyle. The Duke sees and thinks, why does Layla Llewellyn like climbing up trees so much? The Duke says, do you want saving? Layla thinks, that voice, why does it have to be the Duke and not Kyle? She shouts again, Kyle. The Duke says, he's not coming. Layla says, go away. You're not going to help me anyway, so why are you standing there? The Duke says, you look like you are about to fall, so I should call for some help. I am not that heartless. Layla says, what? The Duke says, I will call for Mr. Edmund, who you are so desperately crying out for. Although, judging by the height you are currently at, we may need Dr. Edmund instead. Layla thinks, if both my legs are intact after this fall, the first thing I do will be to kick that obnoxious man. Oh, but I'm really at my limit now. I can't hold on anymore. Layla, crying, says, please help me. The Duke says, oh? Then call out. Layla says, F for what? The Duke says, call out for me. Layla thinks I briefly thought that falling to my death would be preferable to begging a man like that to save me, but as the branches continued to sway wildly, and my mind went blank with terror, Layla says, Your Grace. Help me. Please, Your Grace. Layla thinks, I found myself calling out for him as if he were my last hope. Layla's hand slips from the branch and she starts falling, crying, "Your Grace." Then, he came. The Duke runs and saves Layla, and Layla thinks, with a swiftness that belied his seemingly nonchalant demeanor. Despite falling from such a great height, I wasn't hurt. I only felt dizzy, and my heart was racing. The Duke thinks as Layla opened her eyes, she felt an unexpected sense of calm. Then unfamiliar sensations slowly began to register one by one. The earthy scent of the earth mixed with the smell of grass, and the faint aroma of watermint in the air, the large, firm body enveloping her head and back, and the rapid heartbeat that could be felt through her chest as it was pressed against his. Layla thinks he saved me. He made it sound like he didn't care in the slightest if I fell or not. What should I do? If I lift my head now, I'm going to have to make eye contact with him. I even shouted at him. I told him to leave if he wasn't going to help me. A delayed sense of embarrassment creeps in, and yet, as I was falling, I desperately called out for him. Perhaps he's laughing at me, I don't know. Either way, the fact is he saved me, so I should get up and express my gratitude properly. But, since earlier, I can feel something strange. The Duke hugs Layla tightly, and Layla says, "Oh." The Duke hugs her tightly again and says, "Stay still." Layla thinks I am so embarrassed. "It can't be." The Duke says, "Wait," and thinks I can't shame myself any further than this. Then he says to Layla, "I told you, Layla. Be a lady. Climbing trees and falling. This is not very ladylike, wouldn't you agree?" Layla thinks you're seriously expecting me to act like a lady in a situation like this? Layla says, "No. Why must I be a lady? After all, your Grace isn't a gentleman." The Duke says, "What?" The Duke throws Layla to the ground, jumps on top of her, and says, "Then what you said in the guest house was a lie? You said it yourself? Your Grace is definitely a gentleman, the best in all of Carlsbad, did you not?" Layla says, "That was a mistake. I misjudged you." The Duke says, "Surely not," touching her face. "It's not possible." The Duke thinks even now, back then, and in every other moment, I have been restraining myself like a true gentleman. Layla says, "Please move. How could a gentleman do something so outrageous?" "I'm grateful to your Grace for saving me, but I don't." The Duke kisses her, touching her lips. The Duke thinks the words she had intended to angrily snap at him with were swallowed up by him. It happened so quickly. Layla kisses the Duke, and the Duke thinks all I could see were the swaying leaves, the sky, and his eyes. A soft sound escapes her lips. The Duke holds her tightly and thinks every time she was faced with that fierce stare, it felt as if she were a prey animal being devoured alive by a predator. I can't understand a single thing. These unfamiliar, shameful sensations. You'll feel nothing, even after doing this with me. You'll be just as indifferent as when you stepped on that fallen coin, or calmly shot dead a bird. I'm meaningless to you." Layla catches his lips and pulls away. "Why you?" Layla thinks of all the people. "Why you? You're nothing at all." And after all this, the Duke turns and goes away. The Duke thinks that the moment I held Layla in my arms, I lost all sense of reason. All that remained was a ravenous desire to possess her, as if I was nothing more than an animal in heat. I found myself wanting to see this desire through to its end. After all, it was meaningless, futile, and ultimately insignificant. If only Layla hadn't cried in that moment, or if only I could have allowed myself to lose control and act so basely toward a woman. Perhaps, with each passing year and season, every time I returned to Arvis, the child had grown as much as the seasons had changed. It had been meaningless to me, until this summer at least. That had been the case. But that has changed because of you, you little nothing. Summers in Berg are short. Soon enough, when a cool breeze starts to blow, this sweltering summer will be over. It will be over as if nothing had happened, as if it all had been a lie. Layla thinks no, and she washes her face and neck, thinking again, no. Layla picks up the tub and starts bathing, thinking no. On the other side, Kyle thinks, "I think it's time we started to grow apart." Even after Layla told me that, she continued to treat me the same as before. We ate together and chatted as we always had. My heart beat anxiously, and I felt numb whenever we spent time together, but I willingly played along. because although you were smiling as if nothing were amiss, you probably felt no different from me. I didn't want to burden Layla just to be rid of my own insecurities. But even so, she said, get home safe, Kyle. I couldn't shake off the strong sense of foreboding I felt. Maybe this line that Layla has drawn will never disappear, so I won't be able to put it off any longer. If I have to go along with my mother's wishes and get married anyway, yes, maybe it's for the best. Kyle thinks, Layla, I don't believe that the only way we can protect each other is by growing apart. I'm going to protect us in my own way. Kyle knocks on the door and says, Father, it's me. His father says, come on in, Kyle. Kyle says, Father, there's something I want to tell you. His father says, by the look on your face, it must be important. Go on, tell me. Kyle says, I think Mother considers me old enough to be married soon. His father smiles and says, Oh, so that's why you looked so serious. Well, yes, your mom gets a little ahead of herself in that regard. Despite what your mom might tell you, there's no need to worry, Kyle. My opinion differs from your mother's. Kyle says, I don't think it's necessary for you to start thinking of marriage so soon. No, Father. Kyle says, I'm also thinking about marriage. His father says, What? You are? You mean you would like to be married? Kyle replies, Yes, Father. I would like to marry Layla, and for us to attend college together. On the other side, Layla sits on the bed and thinks I've had difficulty sleeping for the last 3 days. Was it the fear of being alone? I would stay awake until dawn, and when I finally fell asleep, terrible nightmares would descend upon me and drag me back to a distant past, to the times when I was beaten without knowing why, or abandoned in strange places. Sometimes I would see him in my dreams, as he was on that day. After wandering through the hazy memories of that dusty afternoon, I would open my eyes and be overwhelmed with the urge to cry. Will this memory also become a long and lingering nightmare that will haunt me for years to come? I wanted to forget if I could. I worked all day long, deliberately trying to tire my body out so that I could fall into an exhausted slumber. But the harder I tried to shake off the memories of that day, the more the lingering images clung to me like a shadow, growing more vivid. At times, it felt as if I were being dragged into a deep, dark swamp, along with all the doubts running through my mind. My body and mind feel as heavy as a wet cotton ball from lack of sleep, but I can't let myself sink down completely. After all, Uncle Bill is coming back today. I promised him that I would be fine while he was away, so whatever may have happened, I must keep that promise. Now that I think about it, this is the first time that I've spent a day alone since coming to Berg and meeting Uncle Bill. I always start and finish all my days with him. It's become so natural that I'd forgotten about it. But now I'm alone. No, stop it. I have to stop dwelling on the past. Right now, I should only be thinking about him returning home exhausted after attending his brother's funeral in his distant hometown. Everything will be fine once he's back. The fear of being alone in an empty house, the sorrow of being forced to grow up, the memory of a cruel first kiss, all this confusion and hopelessness, all of it. As long as I can hold on to this life and protect it, everything will be all right. Why isn't he back yet? It's almost evening already. Could it be? At some point, I read an article about train accidents. The article said that many people lost their lives in a single accident, and not only trains but also carriages and cars were frequently involved in accidents, and countless people were injured or killed in them. Layla thinks, what if something terrible like that happened to Uncle Bill? And that's why he hasn't come home yet. I have to go and find out. Uncle Bill. Imagining the worst-case scenario was something of a long-standing habit of mine, because facing misfortune completely unprepared was far too painful to bear. I thought that if I could at least prepare myself mentally, I might be able to face fate with some composure. But I don't know if I can do that when Uncle Bill is involved. What if something bad were to happen to him? What if I never saw him again? What if I'm left all alone in the world after once again losing a loved one? Just imagining it is breaking my heart. Uncle Bill, Layla, it's a present. Layla thinks of her mother. Mommy, are you going somewhere? Her mother said, Yes, Layla. I'm going away, somewhere very far. Layla said, Then, will you be back late? She said yes, very late. Layla said, but you'll be back before I finish these, won't you? The woman said yes, I will. Come back soon, Mommy. Layla thinks, if you were going to abandon me like that, the least you could have done is not make any promises. My mother, who was considered too beautiful to live as a poor man's wife, left us behind with nothing but a flurry of rumors. Rumors that she had become the mistress of an aristocrat, or that she had married a wealthy merchant and left for a faraway country, shattered my father's heart further and did nothing to help him find her. Having quit his job and whiling away his days drinking, my father became a broken man, as if he had abandoned all meaning in life. Daddy, wake up, Daddy, let's go home, please. She cried. Daddy, in his forsaken heart, there was no place for me. At some point, my father began to avoid looking at me. He couldn't bear to see a face that looked like my mother's. Even so, I couldn't give up hope. I believed that if my mother came back, we could go back to the days when we were one happy family. By the time I could start to see the bottom of the glass, I had an ominous feeling, but I had to believe in my mother. I alone had to, even if no one else did. That's probably the reason I couldn't bring myself to eat the last piece of candy. Her father said, Sweetie, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Layla, aren't you cold? Layla replied, I'm fine, Daddy. Her father said, Tomorrow we'll go buy some food and some firewood. Can I come with you? Yes, let's go together. Layla said, I'll have to tidy the house and find work. When I earn money, I'll buy you lots of treats. Her father said, Yes, Daddy. And Layla, let's go to the park together when the flowers bloom in the spring. Layla said, Really? Her father said, You've always wanted to go. Let's go look at the flowers together, and I'll buy you some books that you like. Layla said, Daddy, I can't wait for it to be spring. Her father said, Yes, me too. Layla thinks, I'm cold. In the early hours of the morning, when even the faint warmth of his body had faded away, my father finally left me. Layla said, Daddy. Alone, all I was left with were the promises that became his will and testament, and a single piece of candy. That was all. If you were going to leave me like that, the least you could have done is not make any promises. After my father passed, while my relatives couldn't decide on what to do with the burden that I had become, having been left alone in an empty house and unable to bear the hunger, I ended up eating the last remaining piece of candy. I put it in my mouth and bit down hard, the shards scraping the flesh inside my mouth. Blood oozed from the wounds, but I didn't spit it out. Sorrow tasted ever so sweet and metallic. Layla thinks, I never want to feel a pain like that again. Please, Uncle Bill. Don't leave me all alone. Please come back safely. She said, Uncle Bill. Bill smiled and said, Layla. Layla thinks, no, don't cry. Greet him with a smile. Layla runs and says, Uncle Bill. And thinks I'll tell him I've been doing well, just as I promised. Bill smiles and says, Don't run, Layla. You'll fall over and hurt yourself. Bill says, How have you been while I've been away, Layla? Well, I hope? Layla says, Yes, of course, Uncle Bill. I've been doing just fine. Kyle's father said, So, have you thought it over the past few days? Kyle said, Yes, Father. My mind's made up. His father said, I see. I understand how you feel, and just how much you like Layla. Otherwise, you wouldn't be acting so stubbornly. But Kyle, you are both far too young to be married. In my opinion, you would both be better off focusing on your studies for now. Kyle said, But Mother wants me to marry that young lady from the Arndt family, and she's the same age as me, and Lady Wine is only a year older than us, yet she's soon to be engaged to Duke Herhardt. His father said, Kyle said, It's not because of how young we are, but because you disapprove of Layla, isn't it? Father, I don't want to be married off to someone I have no interest in, and that's why I wanted to talk to you. His father said, Of course, I can't deny that there's some truth in what you're saying, but that's because marriage doesn't just involve the two of you. Kyle said, I'm aware of that, and I wasn't trying to say that family status, reputation, and prestige aren't important. His father said, Then why do you still want to marry Layla? Kyle said, Because no matter how important those things are, They can't possibly be more important than the person I'll spend my life with. I want to be a good doctor, a good husband, and a good father, just as you have been, father. But for me, all of it begins with Layla. I want to live an honest life by her side, by being a good husband to Layla and a good father to our children. His father said, Kyle continued, with Layla by my side, I feel like I can accomplish anything, but without her, father, I don't think I could live such a life. She's already a part of my life. I think that the parts of me that both you and mother love so much come from Layla, and perhaps she's the one who brought out the best in me, so I can't bear to lose her. Please help me live the life I've always dreamed of, father. On the other side, Claudine said, Oh my goodness! You look exquisite, Wine. I can't believe today is finally here. I'm already tearing up. Wine said, Please don't cry today. Her mother said, Of course I won't. There's no need for you to worry. Riette said, I've been wondering about that, Claudine. How does it truly feel to have beaten the princess to become the lady of the house of Herhardt? The Emperor of Berg tried so hard to secure the position of Duchess for his beloved youngest daughter, but the Herhardts chose me instead. Of course, it wasn't for love, but there was clear reasoning behind their choice. I am a bride of noble lineage and a dowry to match that of the princesses, but one who does not need to be treated like royalty. Such arrogance was not unreasonable when placed alongside the name of Herhardt. Thanks to the family's status, once today's engagement takes place, my name will hold a higher position than that of a princess of Berg. When I think about that, I feel as if I could love everything in this world, even the husband I do not love, and his vulgar yellow bird. Wine asked sadly, Marie, is she yet to arrive? The maid said, No, my lady, thinking she should be here by now. Then she saw Layla and said, There she is. Marie said, Don't tell me you sent for that orphan again? Wine said, I needed flowers to adorn my hair with, so I sent for her. That's all. Marie said, Besides, wouldn't it be nice to receive congratulations from an old friend while we're at it? Wine said, Brant. Layla thinks Lady Claudine's maid came to the house this morning. She ordered me to bring flowers to decorate the manor with, but now I know that it's not flowers that Lady Claudine is after. Lady Wine's room is on the 4th floor of the east wing. When I get close to the room, my palms grow clammy and my lips dry up. I feel like a prisoner walking to their judgment. No, what happened that day was an accident, and he may also have dismissed it as such. I'm sure of it. The Duke hasn't visited the woods once since that day. I should let it go. Layla knocked on the door and said, My lady, I brought the flowers you asked for. Wine said, Come in. Wine asked, What do you think, Layla? Do I look all right? Layla said, Yes, my lady. You look beautiful. Wine said, Do you think Duke Herhardt will think the same? Layla said, Pardon? Then said, Yes, I'm sure the Duke would agree. Wine said, Well, I'm glad to hear that. Layla said, Congratulations on your betrothal, my lady. Wine said, Thanks to you, the engagement ceremony will be perfect. The maid handed her coins and said, What are you doing? Take it and be grateful. Layla said, Thank you, my lady, and thought I should go home quickly, lest I run into him. At that moment, the Duke appeared before she left the castle. Hessen said, Hello, Layla? You must be here on an errand for Lady Wine. Layla replied, Yes, thinking why isn't he going up the stairs? The Duke saw Layla, and Layla saw him and thought, Go away. The manor must be busy by now. Mona was worried that there would be more guests than usual tonight. Even though we're on the same estate, this place feels like an entirely different world from the manor. Suddenly it occurred to me that his eyes resembled a color within my long-held memories, eyes like the color of my sorrow. At that moment, Kyle came and said, Layla. Layla smiled and said, Kyle. How did you know I was here? Kyle said, I just had a feeling. This is your favorite place, especially that spot. Layla said, By the way, Kyle, what's the special occasion? You're all dressed up. Oh, you must be going to the engagement party. Kyle said, No. Today is a very important day for me. Then Kyle gave her the flower and said, Layla, let's get married. Marry me, Layla.